Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160 in their 1610. I'm Zach, and joining me, as always, is a man who no one wants to be his friend. They think he is unstable.
Wow,
John Opat.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. That sounds a bit sadder when you say that about me than when I say it about myself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Did you hear? I know you always take out Shyla and I's classic segments that we have, so the listeners didn't hear. But did you hear her nickname that she gave me when she hopped on last week?
Oh, I know. It was something stupid, like
it was pretty stupid.
Little Buddy or something.
It was John the Spawn.
Oh, yeah. I did hear that. The listeners don't even know. Just about, I would say every third recording we do, my wife walks in, puts on the headset, and talks to John about teacher stuff for like 20 minutes, and I always have to take it out.
And for 103 episodes, I thought that Zach always left the conversations in. And just last week, he told me he always takes them out.
Yeah, I feel like you don't know how much editing I do. I'm at this point, I take out like breaths, or when we start a word and it doesn't sound right, and we like say it again.
Wow. Well, there you go. That's how the sausage gets made, webheads.
Yep, I'm dedicated, and I wanted to come in and honor other people who are dedicated. The brave men and women who listen and subscribe and give us 5-star ratings because we're 5-star men and write in every week. You know, John
I'm a 5-star man.
You are a 5-star man. John and I were literally just talking, like at the end of last episode, I think it was, or this week or something. Who can remember? But we were like amazed that there's so many webheads who write in so frequently that we recognize them by name, and we just are picking up a conversation that we've had before, and it really feels like we've started to get a community of listeners. And on this episode that I know a lot of people are going to listen to, I wanted to, at the top, just say thank you all so much for supporting this silly little project we've done for the last 2.5 years that we started not having a clue what we were doing.
Insanely well said. And yeah, 100% agree. Couldn't appreciate the kind comments more. And actually, just before we hopped on, I was sending an email to someone that I was going to save this stuff for the end. So we'll still save a little bit for the end. Sure. Got to keep people listening.
We usually do, but I thought for this episode, maybe that's the problem.
100%.
Let's get it out of the way early when everyone is tuned in.
Definitely.
And yeah, we love the nice comments. Honestly, we kind of love the mean ones too. Sometimes
Zach,
we laugh.
You just told me the other day that you learned how to see the Spotify comments, and I know I got called a moron by someone.
Yeah,
and that's the first. I just want to thank that person. That's the first time I've told a coworker that I do a podcast, was when I came in and I was like, you guys will not believe what somebody said. Me, they took the time to call me a moron. Yeah, man, I know. It's okay.
Yeah, Spotify is brutal. Somehow we have like a good rating over there, but like really harsh comments. Someone didn't like something we said about socialism. I can't imagine what that was.
Who could have? Yeah. That's what every single mean comment is about. Is about politics. It's crazy.
I know. Well, you know what? They should go to a different comic book podcast.
No.
Here's the thing: we're the #1 politics one. If they chose us, they know what they were signing up for.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming in hot with something here. So, Zach, you might remember I told you last week about my volleyball tournament.
I've been waiting.
Is that ringing any bells?
It's been in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, the playoffs started, the postseason. I can't wait.
Did I tell you who we were playing or anything?
Yeah, I'm following all the lore, as are we all. It was the toughest team that you've lost to, that you thought is not the team you'd want to go up against in the first round.
It was not, and so I'm gonna say the name for you. You can bleep it if you have that editing capability. If we don't want to dox my archdiocese, but it's Saint, and I hate Saint. They're my second least favorite school after Mount Carmel.
Got to be the worst saint.
I don't even know what he's the saint of. Yarn, buses,
oak.
Yeah. Barnes. What? We could go on forever.
This feels like the conversation we had about like the different anniversary gifts, where we're who gets that? Like, how do you become the?
Yeah, it was like cherry.
How do you become the saint of cherry? Yeah,
dude, I bet there is one, but I'm not gonna let my undiagnosed ADHD Google that. I'm gonna stay on task. So. We had to play St. Barnabas, yep, and they went 6-0. Plus, they went 3-0 in the preseason tournament. So they were 9-0 as a team. Had only lost one game all year. They beat us up pretty good in our first game of the season.
Well, that's not 9-0 if they've only lost one game.
9-0 in matches, but volleyball plays best of 3, and they've only lost one individual game. So 8 of their games, they won 2-0, and then one of their games, they won 2-1.
Gotcha. So they
Sorry,
usually...
I'm using the words matches and sets and games kind of, interchangeably.
So they usually sweep the opposition.
Yes. 8 out of 9 times.
Okay, wow. That is really good context.
Yeah. And I preach to my kids all week in practice that... a team like that has championship aspirations. If they're going to not show up for a game, it's going to be the first game of the tournament against a team they already beat up on in the regular season. And if we come in and we play with championship energy, I don't know how many times I said it's a game of inches. It's a game of inches, guys. And the guy who's willing to fight is going to win that inch.
My God, I'm ready to get out there and play for you, Coach.
That's Al Pacino any given Sunday. I know you don't like football movies, so...
No way, man. Your references are off the hook.
Thanks. And, Zach, we came out and we got him. We beat him 2-1. We took him in game 1. We fell down 18-1 in game God. 2. 18-1, managed to come back and make it sort of a reasonable game, like 25-12. And then we got him in game 3.
Let's go.
And maybe I said, but I've been coaching that team for 3 years now, since my first year teaching, So, and now they're in 8th grade, and gosh, I just really I was so bummed that we drew that team in the first round, because I just wanted to make a postseason run with them. And I was just so happy to win. It was just such an amazing. It was so awesome. It was so awesome.
Wow. Did they carry you out on their shoulders and dump Gatorade on you?
They didn't. And obviously the kids are the majority of the win, considering they've played the game. But
no, dude, it's about you.
The coaching, there was a good deal of coaching involved in that upset. I will say. I do think that the pregame, the things that we were focusing on, they made a big difference. I even talked to that Barnabas coach. The next round of the tournament was last night, and the Barnabas coach was kind of there watching because he knew some of the kids on the other teams. And I was talking to him, and I mean, rightly so. He was like, I was pretty he used the word gobstruck. And then he stopped himself. He's like, not that you guys weren't a good team, but and I was like, no, man, trust me. I was gobstruck also. I couldn't believe it. Not that we aren't a good team, but we were outmatched. But that's why they play the game.
I love it. I'm proud of you, John, proud of your kids. I kind of wish I had gone now. I think it's very funny that you spent all week preaching to them that they could win this, and then they win it, and you're like, I was blown away. I didn't think they could do it.
Well, I didn't say that to my team.
Right.
And I never said I didn't think that we could beat them. we could beat them, right? Any team can win. That's the NCAA tournament. But right, there's when you're an underdog or not. And I will quickly breeze past this next part because unfortunately, as you can tell by my somber tone, the next game of the tournament was last night, and we played a team that we were very evenly matched with. I would say if we played them 10 times, obviously I'm biased, I would say we would win 6 of those times, but last night wasn't one of them. Lost a pretty heartbreaking third game. Lost a kind of a tough second game. We won game 1, lost game 2, lost game 3. It was pretty disappointing. But Zach and I told the team this. Nothing that the sadness doesn't take away from how awesome that upset against St. Barnabas was.
For sure. Yeah.
That was all my stuff.
I can't tell you who won the tournament, the NCAA tournament 5 years ago, right? But I can remember 10 years ago when VCU and Butler were making a run of it, right? We remember the underdogs who came close or did something they weren't supposed to, more than we remember the people that just kind of belonged there and played accordingly.
Yeah. Well, I might steal some of that and say that to the kids, because something I'm a little disappointed in is I was just so bummed after that loss, and I was kind of shocked also, right? Like we won game 1, and then I just thought we were going to win the whole time. So when it didn't happen, I didn't really have like a post-game end of season speech prepared. Like I wish I had like watched Ted Lasso like the previous night, just so I had like something in my head that I was like mulling around, but I just didn't have anything, and the game ended and my mind kind of went blank. So I was a little disappointed in myself that I didn't have like more to say to like wrap up the season. And I'm going to do like a final team get together where we're going to scrimmage like the 8th grade girls A team. I'm trying to play matchmaker with a couple of those kids, the best players on each team. Whoops, sorry, hit the mic. And I might steal some of that and say that to the team, because I'm sure I'll say something to the team before they get started.
Yeah.
So thank you, Zach.
Oh, you're welcome.
So
but
how was
that?
Your
that
week?
is still awesome.
It was awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I was so happy that we won that game.
Nothing as interesting as that happened to me this week. Shyla was sick she took some days off.
Dude, that's insane. One of you guys was sick? The best immune systems in the state of Indiana?
Right, never happens. We finished Wheel of Time. That was good.
I have a recommendation for us. Speaking of watching TV shows and finishing them.
Okay. You finished Evangelion.
No, but it's part of what my recommendation is. So let me know what you think of this. I think do all of our great webheads know that we're about to go to a bi-weekly schedule? Have you announced that? Am I breaking the ice here?
This would be a good time to say it. Yeah, it's been on the Instagram page, but not everyone follows us on Instagram. I don't know why you wouldn't, but the metrics tell us a lot of you don't. We are going permanently to a bi-weekly schedule. I'm really glad that for like the first year of this podcast, we didn't really miss any weeks, but that was a hard schedule to keep up. And moving forward, it would be a lot easier on me if I could have like basically a week to edit between the episodes and build in time where sometimes it's just hard for us to get together in a certain week.
Yeah. Wow, this is kind of interesting that the entire time we've been doing this podcast, I mean, gosh, I've had a full-time job. I've coached volleyball, basketball, and I've been getting my teaching degree and master's. We never went to a bi-weekly schedule then.
I know.
And now, Zach, in my last week of my master's program that I'm about to finish up, where all of my free time is about to open up, now we're just too busy. Care to explain?
Well, Yeah, these last 6 months, we've been taking a lot of breaks, right? And I'd rather
that's
have
true.
a regular schedule that we can keep than an irregular schedule that gets you more episodes.
That's a really good point. And I was obviously just giving you.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so here's my thought. For these bi-weekly things, it'll give us more time to do stuff. So I think I could very reasonably watch the shows that you tell me to watch, especially during the summer when I literally don't, I'm not doing anything.
Right.
So that would be easy. So I think every week we should have a key thing to talk about outside of whatever comics that we're doing.
I love that.
Since the run probably won't last as long.
Yeah, we already do that, but we'll be more intentional with it.
So here's what I want. You're
gonna start.
Here's what I want. Yes, now you know the reason for bringing this whole thing up. Do you think it was to watch Evangelion? It's not. I'll do it, but either the first week or the second week, I want us to talk about the new Black Mirror season. I'm just itching to talk about these episodes, and
okay.
It's only 7 episodes, so right, you can pound those out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
and we can talk about the new Black Mirror episodes.
Yeah, dude, I'll pound one out. Like, I don't know, probably tomorrow.
Please, yes, get your rocks on these Black Mirror episodes.
Yeah, I definitely will do that.
And then we can do Evangelion.
Okay. This is so funny. I was talking to someone and I was like, oh man, I have such a great idea, but John will never go for it. You know what else is probably a highly sought after comic run, at least for like online content about it, that there's just nothing about. It's just a blank spot online.
What? I don't know.
The Evangelion manga.
Oh my God.
Which is different from the show and movies. So I don't even know
all of the cool superheroes that were popping through my head. And you said Evangelion. Okay.
Did I tell you this? I showed you this guy that I built, right?
Yes.
My little nephews came over and they were like, obviously wanted to know who that is. And they're all about superheroes and they know I'm all about superheroes. And they could not fathom that this purple and green robot guy was not a superhero. They're like, what does he do? Is that like a suit that he's wearing? Why is he so skinny? I'm like, no, that's a robot. And they're like, a superhero robot? I'm like, sort of. And they're like, that fights bad guys, that fights the Joker and Green Goblin. I'm like, no, he fights other things. Sort of, yeah.
Wow. So is it I guess now they know more about Evangelion than I do.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, I don't really remember what that show was about from the first episode, except it had a theme song that just seemed out of place. That was my big takeaway.
The theme song is out of place, but in the best way, because it's an absolute bop, and it's so happy and makes you happy. And then the show gets pretty depressing.
Did you know that we're at 20 minutes. We're still way... Did you know that the word bop is not being used as like a slang term for a song anymore, or at least it means something else also that the kids are saying these days?
Yeah, isn't it like hoe?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's so mean.
She's a bop. I don't even know how that could have gotten started.
And the phrase bop is such a good phrase for a song. Yeah.
It feels old-timey. It feels like something, you'd put on a jukebox.
What are the kids bopping to?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand the slang of the kids these days.
Neither do I. And with that, should we get into it?
Let's get into it. Our sponsor today is Skibbity Toilet.
Every business says they're better. But the ones that earn and display the BBB seal back it up. It instantly identifies businesses that are committed to operating with integrity, honoring promises, and telling the truth. Makes you wonder why every business doesn't have it. So look for it, because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Okay, Zach, we're back.
That we are.
This is it. Issue 159 and 160. The day that I thought might never come.
Yes. And after 104 episodes of this, you would think I would know to have this already open on my iPad.
Well, guess what? I don't either. While you're opening it, I have something you could be doing if you can multitask.
What's up? It's open, but what's up?
Can you explain what happened to Uncle Ben in this run? Because it's been kind of a long time. And obviously, we all know Uncle Ben is dead. But I don't fully remember how that happened. Was it because of Peter? Did Peter take money instead of helping out? You know, that's a classic thing.
It was the guy who robbed the wrestling promotion, and then later that night.
So this is very Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Well, it's also very Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, because that's how it is in Amazing Fantasy 15 also.
Oh, so they copied the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man origin story?
Yeah, I think that's how it happened.
Okay.
I can't really fact check that, but that sounds right. Yeah, so that guy then came to the Parker house and bust in and tried to rob him and shot him.
He came to the Parker house?
Yeah, isn't that bold? It does make more sense in the movie that the car was just parked out front because of Peter.
Yeah, and Peter was just trying to buy his milk, and he didn't have enough money.
Well, that's the Amazing Spider-Man.
If he just had a little more money for his milk, Uncle Ben might still be alive in that universe.
I always hated that.
Dude, it's the worst scene ever.
Yeah. They made it.
The cashier who's like, you can't afford your milk. You gotta go. You gotta pay at least $1 to take a penny. Sorry, kid. Man.
Such a stupid, wasted scene.
What were you saying before I did my awesome cashier impression?
That is what a smug cashier sounds like. I don't know. Just that scene takes any weight or structure to the reason Uncle Ben died. And it also makes Peter not seem like a jerk in that moment, right? You need him to seem like he was in the wrong about something, so that then when Uncle Ben dies, he feels guilty about something.
Huh, that's interesting.
Because he needs to learn a lesson.
Definitely. But I almost feel like the lesson he's learning, because he isn't in the wrong, right? When the wrestling promoter robs him by not paying him, and then he lets that wrestling promoter get robbed, I don't think he's in the wrong. You know, he's not required to stop anybody from robbing a guy who just stole money from him. I think then the lesson he learns is he has to help everyone, even when they're in the wrong.
I guess what I'm saying is it's totally understandable why anyone would not stop a gunman robbing a convenience store. What he did, at least in the movie, was he could have easily let the door close on the elevator, and instead he let the guy get in it. Right? It was more like he was almost helping him.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so in this run though, I guess the guy's on the run from the cops, and he just stumbles across the Parker house.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Peter's not home.
Yeah, Peter's not home. He gets home, and Uncle Ben has been shot.
That's messed up.
It is. Anyways,
Crime.
I'm kind of...
I don't know.
It's no good.
That's from the West Wing.
What, they just say crime?
It's for any webheads that are also West Wing fans, there's kind of a famous scene where President Bartlett, Martin Sheen, is he's talking to the president he's running against. And not to get political, Zach, but Bartlett is a Democrat, and this guy, his name's Richie. He's kind of like your classic, all shucks Republican. I'm just a normal man, and this Bartlett's using all types of fancy talk, and that's not my America.
Not at all informed by the fact that we had a cowboy Republican president at the time.
And unfortunately, one of the Secret Service agents who's protecting like Bartlett just like stumbles into a gas station robbery. Gosh, I don't know what even made me like think about this, but probably the fact that we were just talking about something like this. And he stops it, but he does get shot, and he dies. And Martin Sheen is like telling the other president that, because they're just like having a moment, like just the two of them, and the other president just kind of says, "Boy, crime. I don't know." And it's just kind of famous. Bartlett kind of walks on stage and he says, "Just so you know, boy, crime, I don't know, is when I decided to kick your ass." And of course, he goes on and like kicks his ass in the election. Yeah. Look at that, man. The West Wing is actually sick.
Yeah, it is and it isn't, because now we've got a whole host of like commentators who think that that's how politics actually works, But anyways, I do remember that scene now that you mention it. I haven't watched that show since college, but good show.
It is a good show.
I was in a
Should
meeting.
we do a West Wing podcast?
I think that's next. Yeah. I was in a meeting this week with a guy who looked like a mix of Vince McMahon and Martin Sheen. And all I could think of was how much I like Martin Sheen. It made me want to rewatch that.
He's a good one. Oh, man. The Departed. That's a great one.
Those are the two things I
got to
like
rewatch that one.
Those and Wall Street.
Wall Street?
He's in Wall Street. He
really?
plays his own son's dad in the movie, which is pretty cool. You've got a father and son.
Oh, does he? Is he
father
Charlie
and son?
Sheen's? Oh,
yeah.
That is fun. Okay. So now we know how Uncle Ben died. What?
Yeah, we were saying something about Spider-Man.
Yes. On the Spider-Man podcast, that's going to have more listeners than usual. We were talking about Spider-Man.
I love the listener comment that we got. I'm sure we'll read it at the end. It was like, "I love when you guys talk about Ultimate Spider-Man." It's like, yeah, that was kind of what we were supposed to be doing.
The Ultimate Spider-Man podcast.
The whole time, but we just get off track.
Okay, so Uncle Ben. So, is Peter like not? I don't know. I guess we don't. I don't have to know all of it, but I'm still not sure how this like affects how Peter. So Peter just let this guy get away, and then the guy beat him back home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess he beat him back home,
and he killed Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
It
is funny. And kind of interesting that you are going back to the beginning of the series, because I'll talk about it later. I did the exact same thing. So today when I read these issues, I also went back and flipped through issue 1 just to see how far we've come. And if anything,
does that happen in issue 1? Does it all start in issue 1?
No, because Uncle Ben survived long enough. People were like questioning, why is Uncle Ben still here? This guy
was he already Spider-Man?
He was not Spider-Man yet. He doesn't become Spider-Man until like issue 6.
That's exactly the issue that I thought. Probably because we talked about it, and I like remembered that from.
Yes,
I was like, I think he's not till like issue 6. Well, that's not that long.
Well,
I mean, I guess in comic book things,
that's 6 months.
When you're out of 160, that doesn't seem like. I hit my mic again. That doesn't seem like that much, but I guess in any normal run, 6 issues is a lot.
Yeah, at the time, people were like, are they ever going to kill Uncle Ben?
I wish not.
This is the most we've talked about Uncle Ben since those issues, I promise you. Anyways.
Wait a minute, dude! And he's Martin Sheen!
Oh my god.
That's the most amazing thing I've ever thought.
How did this all happen organically?
Oh my gosh. There's at least one listener who the last 2 minutes has been like, Martin Sheen was also Uncle Ben in Spider-Man. He was just waiting for us to get there.
Our subconsciouses must have put this all together way before our consciousnesses did.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay. And on that, I
have to leave this whole tangent in.
Definitely.
Anyways, Ultimate Spider-Man, issue 159, written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Mark Bagley, inked by Andy Lanning, colored by Justin Ponsor, and lettered by VC's Cory Petit. All right. And John, as we always say, jump in at any point if you have something to add.
Definitely.
We open on Peter standing in front of the Sinister Three. That's Kraven, Electro, and Sandman at this point.
And this isn't a big deal, but I'm going to point it out because when I turned the page, it was the first thing I noticed. Peter's head is really oddly proportioned on his body. I think.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, we read how many issues of David Lafuente? We should be used to an oddly proportioned head on Peter.
Is that who it is?
No, this is Bagley. But remember,
that's why it stuck out to me. Because right away I looked at it and I was like, this doesn't look like this Mark Bagley. It's only the head. I just wanted to see if you noticed it also, and it sounds like you didn't.
No, not as much. Okay, so he's standing there in front of 3 of the Sinister Six, and this is interesting. The first 3 panels, that's like the big panel at the bottom, but the first 3 in the top left is Norman Osborn unconscious, and then Johnny Storm and Bobby Drake unconscious, kind of letting us know that they're all there. They're just not active in the scene. I did think this was interesting, though, and this is where it comes in that I reread issue 1, because I was aware of this all the way through, but now I'm really looking for it. So the first person we see on this panel in the second to last issue is Norman Osborn. The first person we see in the first panel of the first issue back in 2000 is Norman Osborn.
Really? Oh my gosh.
That's see
crazy.
If we get any other visual indicators of Norman Osborn's importance in this story. I think someone could maybe make the argument. Now, I wouldn't, because he doesn't show up in every issue and he's not like the character we're following.
And it's not called Ultimate Norman.
But someone could make the issue that Norman is kind of set up as, if not the main character, a secondary main character, or there is a perspective where this whole story is about him.
He's the god of this story, as he's told us a million times.
That's right. He is so sure that everything's about him, and it might be.
Well, I kind of hate that. So
I also don't love it, but I think it's a very interesting creative choice. And I like that it's subtle.
I don't think that it was on purpose.
Oh, I think it was.
I don't think it was on purpose to bookend Norman Osborn being the first person, and I mean, since we're talking about it, we can just say Norman Osborn's also the last person, So, and I just don't. That seems. I feel like it more had to do with each individual story.
There's no reason the first issue needed to start with Norman, right?
There's no way you could think that before they wrote the first issue, they already had the ending planned, where at the end of this storyline, probably not after Peter dies, right? But at the end of the storyline, no matter what happens, we're going to end with Norman Osborn.
No, of course not. But both came from the same mindset of, we are making some intentional decision to note how important Norman Osborn is to this story.
Yeah.
It's like a continued, almost like they renewed their vows, if we're going to make another Spider-Man reference.
There you go.
Yeah. They just restated the thesis of Norman is, I don't know.
Far from home.
Yeah, Norman is blank. That
you could say he's no way home, maybe.
It is left up to your interpretation, but it's supposed to beg a certain question about what Norman means to all of this. He is more important than any other individual villain. Okay. So Peter thinks to himself that he needs to stall, and he can't let them know that he's on the verge of collapsing as it is. And he starts telling them, hey, you better surrender, because the Ultimates are right behind me, all of them. And if you surrender now, I'll make sure Nick Fury knows you guys were on your best behavior. And they immediately call his bluff and are like, this guy's hurt. You see how he's standing? He's like shot or something. And Peter's like, oh, shit. And so the Sinister Three attack, and Kraven shoots at Peter with his gun, but he hits a fire hydrant instead. And it starts gushing out water. And Peter puts his hands over the water and redirects it towards Kraven and Electro, shocking them both.
It was really funny to me that Peter beat these guys by doing like a third grade water hydrant trick. Like they're like spraying the hose and you put your thumb on it and like get your friends, and like that's what Peter just defeated two supervillains doing.
I like the fact that it shows how resourceful Peter is, that in this moment where we can't believably just have him beat up on these guys with traditional fighting, he's kind of using whatever he has in his environment.
Yeah. Will you also remind me what happened to, where did Sandman come into this story? Like, did we ever even see him?
Before this?
Yeah. Like, has he fought Peter? Does he have like a daughter with a disease or something?
We didn't get that far. He definitely was more of a minor villain, but do you remember we had an episode that we named Enter Sandman?
Yes.
And it's, I want to say it's Carol Danvers remembering a time that she saw Peter fight Sandman.
That's when we've seen Sandman. We saw him in a flashback, a memory.
Yeah, I think he might have also been in Ultimate 6, but he has not been a notable villain in this series.
Okay.
He got like one full issue to himself.
He's just living off his reputation as like a Spider-Man villain.
Sure, his reputation precedes him.
Yeah.
So Electro, who just got, hit with water, and like, as we all know, right? Water and electricity, science.
That's science.
He turns back into a regular naked man, and Peter uses his webs to pull him into a punch.
I like that this is nothing a regular naked man. It's just funny. It's just a funny turn of phrase. I like that Peter grabbed him and like pulled him close and punched him, because isn't that exactly how he beat Vulture when Vulture was like flying at him? Or no, he webbed Vulture and like swung him around like a shot put and
he like lassoed Vulture. But we have seen this move. This is a good one. I like doing this in the Spider-Man video game.
Oh yeah.
Web pull them, and if they have a gun, you can yank their gun out of their hand.
That would hurt so badly if you web pulled someone like this and then you punch them right as they got to you. That would feel like a car accident, full force.
I think it might break someone's neck.
Definitely,
even if he's like pulling his punches, like we know he always does. And Peter collapses to a knee, and we can see the sweat dripping from him, which I think is a really good touch. That's one reason that this fight with his mask off is a little more visually satisfying. And also he's like looking his villains in the eyes every time, and they're like sharing words.
This could also be water droplets from the fire hydrant.
That's probably right. I think it's more fun if this guy is dripping sweat.
Yeah, it probably is.
It's probably both. And we see that the neighborhood has gathered around him, and everyone is staring at his maskless face in shock. And one guy's recording on his phone. And Peter's like, can you guys please call 911? I've been shot. And they're like, Spider-Man, behind you. And Sandman attacks Peter from behind. And he smashes him with a giant fist and then sucks Peter into the sand.
Is this a good little New York, oh, you mess with the bull, you get the horns. We got you, Spider-Man.
Oh,
or did they miss an opportunity? Yeah.
You mess with all of us? No, they don't start throwing cans and crowbars, unfortunately.
I think this is a missed opportunity here. You know,
I'm glad it didn't go down that way.
I was just waiting for Joey Coco Diaz to stand in front. He's the guy on the train in Spider-Man 2 to stand in front of one of these villains and say that.
You want him, you got to go through me.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
And me. And me. And me. Okay, so eventually Peter swings out of Sandman, coughing up sand, and Vulture returns to the fight, which I'm glad he didn't just beat Vulture by throwing him. I'm glad Vulture still has a little bit left in the tank.
Well, he does have wings. I figured just getting chucked wouldn't completely...
Right.
You know,
that would have been unrealistic. It would have taken me out a little bit. So Vulture shows back up and kicks Peter and sends him bouncing off cars and over the road, and then throws some grenades at him. And
very Green Goblin-ish.
They are. It is like the movie Green Goblin, right? Where the pumpkin bombs are grenades instead of pumpkins.
Yep. That famous movie that Norman Osborn is the star of, Green Goblin 1.
Or as they called it when it released, Green Goblin.
Yeah. Before of course, the third movie, New Goblin.
And who could forget Goblin, No Way Home?
Yeah.
Into the Goblin verse.
Ooh, that'd be good.
All right. Meanwhile, on the Jersey Turnpike, May and Gwen are driving to their hotel and are talking about Peter and how worried they are about him. Really fails the Bechdel test right here, Bendis. You have two issues left.
Shut it.
They're talking about a man, and one of the neighbors calls May and tells her that she thinks Peter is Spider-Man and some men are killing him. So things are not going well. Right?
And there couldn't have even been a woman killing him, Bendis. Ugh.
So May does a U-turn through the median on the interstate and speeds back home. And
this is awesome. This is one of my favorite scenes that you just casually glossed over. Because she gets the call from the neighbor. Maybe you said this and I wasn't listening to. That's been known to happen. But the neighbor is like, I think that Peter is Spider-Man. And, you know, I just think that that's like cool. It's like now the neighborhood knows, you know, and the first thing they did was like call Aunt May.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, I thought you were going to point out the fact that May was talking about Uncle Ben in this scene, as we have been today.
Yeah, but I think we talked about it today because they talked about it in this comic.
She doesn't even have anything to say. She just is crying and she goes, "Oh, Ben. Ben, Ben, Ben."
She says, "I don't." It's like she asks him for help when she's.
Oh, sure.
When she needs help,
she's praying to him. She says, "I don't know what to do."
Yeah, it's cute.
It is cute. We'll see if Uncle Ben
hater.
Steps in and saves Peter.
Well, right after she said that, she got the call that caused her to like turn around.
Oh.
So, you know. I do think that those are put right next to each other, like for a reason.
You're right. I think you're right. That is a good point. Back in Queens, Peter is getting his ass absolutely handed to him, and thinks that's all I got. Where the hell are the police? The X-Men, the and he starts to say Titans, but then he gets hit.
For real, Peter's making some really good points. Why aren't there any heroes doing this? This is kind of absurd. And where's Jessica Drew right now? I know she's our favorite, but I just can't help but think, where are these people? That's what happens when you put a million superheroes in the same city.
Yeah. Well, okay, I can explain away some of this. So we know where the Ultimates are. They're dealing with
we know where the Ultimates are.
Jessica, that one can only really be explained from a narrative sense by saying they're trying to write this to appeal to people who read the earlier stuff, and they might not know who Jessica is, and they might be confused if she shows up here. Okay?
Okay.
Johnny and Bobby tried to help. They're unconscious. The X-Men, who he specifically calls out, most of them died in Ultimatum, and at this point they're disbanded. And we know the Fantastic Four is pretty much disbanded, right? There's
still two of them.
There's still two
fantastic people.
Right. Probably on their honeymoon right now.
Maybe, but you would think that they would be just as motivated to come here and help, considering Johnny is unconscious and could be dead too, you know? Like, I would think that they would have an ear to the ground with what's going on with Peter Parker and their brother.
Sure, but maybe help is on the way, but they need it there right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. The whole issue, spoiler, the neighbors are like, we already called the police. We called an ambulance. They're not here yet.
That's one of the frustrating things about this issue. Is that like, I'm kind of just waiting I'm like, why is nobody here yet?
Right. They're waiting on help. And part of that is it's a comic book. We don't actually know how much time passed through all of this. This could have been
That's a good
pretty quick fight. Yeah. Or it could be that it's taking them forever to come because they've got bigger stuff to deal with because there was just like the Queensboro Bridge collapsed.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
But
all good points.
I do think, so it's funny that he's thinking about the Teen Titans, that they snuck in a little DC reference. It is funny.
I did think Jessica Drew was about to show up right here, though. And you know, I've talked about it. I talked about it in last week's Daredevil episode, but it's all about setting expectations and then delivering on them. I never once thought that Jessica Drew was going to show up until Peter started mentioning why heroes aren't there helping him. And then I was like, oh yeah, Jessica Drew is probably still here. And she's basically Peter. She'd be a perfect character to have come back in this. It's like a thematic, a death of Spider-Man, you might say.
What if she was the Spider-Man that died instead of him?
That would be such a hilarious cop-out. I would respect that money-grabbing idea.
Another 160 issues of Peter, baby. We're printing money. We're going to do another Death of Spider-Man next week. The rest of the series is just called Death of Spider-Man.
Which one will we kill off this week?
Right. It's just the multiverse. They're just sucking in a different Spider-Man that doesn't matter and putting him in a wood chipper. Okay. So the neighbor from the phone call, the one that called May, runs up to Peter and says, "You're Peter Parker, right? You're May's boy? Come with me if you want to live." Which, it's funny.
I'm sure both of us groaned. I could tell just by the way you said that and the look that you gave me after you said it that didn't really land with you either.
I mean, it's a noble intention for sure, but what the hell is this lady gonna do?
She would never. That's just the thing. That's like Bendis wanting to write, "Come with me if you want to live," because it's a. But there's no way a random woman would actually like say that in that situation. You know.
Yeah.
Unless that's a superhero and we don't know it, which it could be. Maybe Bendis fooled us. Maybe she's a Spider-Man, Zach.
Well, she looks like Lucille Bluth.
She does. One banana, Michael. What could it cost? $20?
The sad thing is we're going to live to see the day where that joke doesn't make sense anymore.
Dude, eggs are like $9 a carton. It's insane.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Trump. I know it's his fault. Write in the comments and tell me how stupid I
am. Okay, so this neighbor is standing over Peter and is like, "I'm going to help." And then Sandman appears to be about to smash them both when Electro shocks him. And by him, I mean Sandman. So we've got some friendly fire going on. And Vulture's like, "Hey, man, what the hell?" And Electro says, "There's only so much crap I'm going to take from a 13-year-old kid who doesn't know he died 10 minutes ago. If Osborn is down for the count, then this one's mine."
This gets a little contrived when our villains start fighting each other as they're about to like kill our guy here. But it's okay. I'm not totally out of this, you know.
I actually love this because this is a really good Sinister Six trope, right?
Oh, is it?
The point of
That's why they always lose, is because they can't contain themselves.
Can't work together as a team. The point of the Sinister Six is there's no way Peter should be able to beat these guys, but their infighting always gives him a chance.
Oh, that's good, then. I like that a lot. I like that little touch.
That is a callback to like stories past of the Sinister Six.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, so what are you doing? Kill him. And Electro's like moving to in front of Peter. He's like, not just yet. I want to look him in the eyes when I do it. And Peter says, hey, Electro, I always wanted to tell you, you were my greatest adversary, and it was an honor to battle you. Oh, wait, that wasn't you. I barely gave you a second thought.
Incredible line. Incredible. I loved it.
I love it, too. I love that this is a rare opportunity to see a Spider-Man who is truly on death's doorstep. Like, it's actually bad. We're not just...
And he's still quipping.
He is still quipping to the very end.
And I kind of made a note of this also. It's not just that he's quipping. We can also see his internal dialogue, and it's not quipping at all. He's like, oh, I'm about to die. I'm like bleeding. I can see my heart, And then externally, he's like still quipping to the villains, and that's a good way to go.
And John, I feel like this was kind of set up really well in that the cemetery scene with Captain America a few weeks ago, where he's like, look, dude, you're always telling jokes. I don't get the sense that you've ever thought seriously about death or you take any of this seriously. It's like, he can do both at the same time, and he is.
Yeah. Huh. I hadn't made that connection. Maybe Captain America's right.
No, I think Captain America's wrong. Because he says, I don't think you take death seriously. I don't think you think about the stakes of these things.
Oh, because he just can't see inside Peter's head.
He says, and if you do, I have never seen evidence to show it. It's like, yeah, because you can't read his captions and his thoughts.
Okay, I'm gonna read his line one more time just because I liked it. In case anyone was like, oh, I didn't quite grasp that.
I saw this and I thought to myself, this is the kind of line that would tickle John.
It did. It tickled me. Electro, I always meant to tell you. And it's got the ...
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Hey, thanks, Alexa. He said Electro. Jesus,
come on.
Amazon's
Bezos.
a what? $100 billion company? They don't know what Electro is?
You were my greatest adversary, and it was an honor to battle you. And then the bubble goes down. So you kind of do, you leave with it for a tenth of a second. You're like, surely he's joking. And then he says, oh, wait, that wasn't you. I barely ever gave you a second's thought. That's awesome. That's very much the Kingpin chucking that guy away 1 second after asking who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, same humor, right? Bendis's humor is reliant on timing that you can read in the page. It's always about separating the same thought into two different word balloons. So like John said, for a second...
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
He had me there. And Electro says, hope you enjoyed that.
Surely Peter wouldn't actually say this type of thing to like Osborn or Doc Ock either.
No way. But
yeah.
And honestly, I kind of hate that it even was used on Electro because I think it would have been way funnier on Kraven, Vulture, or Sandman.
Shocker.
Yeah. Oh my god. Well, he knows Shocker's name.
He does. Him and Shocker are tight now. That's just like a what's it? That's like a professional rivalry at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Shocker is who he just fights for fun.
Yeah. He kind of reminds me of Jesse Pinkman in Invincible. The Shocker guy in that. That's like just a little crazy, because didn't Shocker kind of go off the deep end?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did. He's like, everyone's laughing at me. I will
They
kill
think
you.
I'm unstable.
Yeah. Okay, so Electro says, hope you enjoyed that. And then we flip the page. This is another good bit of timing, right? This is like really good pacing because you know that this is the page that you flip and you get a big reveal. And we see a bullet tearing through his chest. Then another one. Then another one.
It's the Punisher. He's back.
I wish. Make yourself useful, Frank. And then finally we see Electro spark and glow a bright white light before exploding. And we see Aunt May standing there with a smoking revolver in her hand and a shocked Gwen behind her. She just f***ing killed this guy.
Dude, she did. And Gwen said exactly what I was thinking, which is that was awesome.
Yeah,
and why are normal people allowed to kill in comics, but our heroes aren't?
Good question, because if Peter had killed all these guys 100 issues ago, this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
I think it's a little different here because, like, she's the mother bear, right? And you just messed with the cub. I think people see a nobility
You mess with the
that.
horn, you got the bull, baby. That's New York.
And also, I love Gwen's dialogue is perfectly Gwen and perfectly, like, 2000s teenager. Because she doesn't just say that was awesome. She's like, oh my God, that was the definition of awesome.
Yeah.
And then that's like the only moment Gwen really gets. She runs over to check on Bobby and Johnny, and she's like, they're still breathing. Okay, cool. We knew they were. We weren't worried about them. And Aunt May asks Peter what happened, and he says, well, I know I'm probably grounded forever, but I've been shot. So he's even still like kind of joking with her, right? Talking about being grounded and stuff. And at this point, he has collapsed again to his knees and is being cradled by Aunt May. Basically, every time he's not actively having to fight, he can't stand.
And did you say that when Elektra blew up, like Sandman blew up with him?
Oh, that's a good point.
So they're all of the villains are currently dead or incapacitated, at least at the moment.
Sure. Norman was already knocked out.
And Peter is still alive.
He's still alive. I'm going to go through a roster. So
now, could we cut to Jessica Drew miles away, who has like choked on a waffle or something, and she's passed away? Roll credits.
No.
Okay.
Let's not. But, okay, so I'm going to go through our Sinister Six. Doc Ock killed by Norman Osborn before
that's f***ed up. I forgot about that.
This whole thing even popped off. Norman, unconscious. Craven, taken out by a fire hydrant that he shot. And then now...
Hilarious way to go. For a dog. For a guy with, like, dog powers. He got taken out by a fire hydrant.
Oh...
You can't tell me that's not on purpose.
I do think it's funny. You are the only one who keeps like insisting Craven is a dog. And
that's because he like smells things and knows where to go.
You're not wrong. I've never heard that before, but you know what? That's why you're the right man to have a podcast about this. And then Electro murked by Aunt May.
Yep. Who then exploded into Sandman.
Took out Sandman, took out Vulture.
Where's Vulture? Vulture got taken out also?
He got taken out. Yep.
Wow.
Well, you know, he's wearing a lot of electrical stuff, right? Think about the science, John. Circuits, huh?
That's science. We're covering all types of science today.
Yeah, very well. In great detail.
I think this comic book was about the best advertisement for the Second Amendment I think you could have, because Peter spent 158 issues dealing with these guys, and Aunt May just took out 3 of them with a gun in the span of 1 page.
You're right. You know, that guy who walks around my hometown with an assault rifle, maybe he's onto something.
Actually, you know what, man? I told that to my parents on Easter and my family when I got together with them on Easter, thinking that they would be like, this is like the craziest person ever. Like you and I were talking about, not to get political. And I don't know. My brother was like, well, it's his right. Wouldn't you rather have a gun on you also to defend yourself in case that guy goes crazy? And I'm like, so now we're putting more guns on the street in case the guy with the assault rifle goes nuts. I mean, what type of a world are we living in right now?
Wow, your family is bad liberals.
I guess. I'm sure my mom would like cry if she heard you say that. So
I also think it's funny.
She also couldn't be like further from that. She like, but my dad and my brother are, I guess, going to some like gun safety class thing. That's what brought up this conversation, was they said that. And I was like, are you guys kidding me? Like,
here's the thing. Guns can be left wing also, right? If you think about it,
of Aunt May
for 2 seconds. Well,
the NRA like got its like start like protecting black people's rights to have guns after the Civil War.
That's awesome, and it should. Look at the Black Panthers and what they did with guns. I mean, there is.
Did they kill a bunch of people? I don't know that much about it.
No, dude, they would just like patrol their neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's right, and they'd
So
stand outside places and like make sure that they didn't get messed with.
Yeah, and
that's awesome.
Oddly enough, the cops started behaving a whole lot better in those neighborhoods because of the implication.
Because of it, yeah.
I mean, there's based arguments for guns. I just don't think having one to go get coffee, like a big assault rifle, I don't think that's necessary.
I need that for my protection.
Yeah.
What if I burn myself?
What if you burn yourself?
Yeah, on the coffee, and I have to like shoot a bunch of people.
Oh, sure. Well, the fastest way then to get holes in the coffee so it pours safely onto the ground is to turn its
would be an assault
container
rifle
into Swiss cheese. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Okay.
I'm getting us back on track.
Please.
Yeah. So Aunt May's a straight up G. She's serving 20 years in prison for having a gun in the state of New York, but she just saved the day. Anyways, Peter tells her that he's been shot. And it's funny that her first reaction isn't, oh my God, did I do it? Did one of those bullets hit you? She like knows it wasn't her. But she yells to the neighbors for someone to call an ambulance. And they say, we already did. We called everybody. And
Well, I think that she, Peter and Electra weren't really near each other. Like, there's no way she could have shot.
He stood in front of him because he said, I want to see your face.
Yeah, but that means from a different vantage point, they're nowhere near each other, right? Like, from that one specific point, yes, she could hit either one of them. But from any other angle, except like a total 180, that they're not in the same vicinity, right?
I guess. Yeah, I guess.
Now she did shoot him square in the chest, so that would mean, if you're looking at that, maybe those bullets did go straight past Peter's head. So you're right.
What if they do an autopsy and they find 2 bullets in him?
It was Aunt May. Everyone was mad at the Punisher for years.
Jeez.
Okay, Zach, get us back on track.
That's like when Maggie was who killed Mr. Burns. It's always who you least expect.
Yep.
Okay, so Aunt May's like, call an ambulance. And Peter is basically collapsed in her arms, and she's like cradling him. And he says, I'm so sorry, Aunt May. And she's like, what are you apologizing for? And he says, I know this isn't the life you wanted, which we've heard before in this series, right? He's talking about how
she said that to Gwen in the car when they were driving like 10 pages ago.
This has come up multiple times with Aunt May, that this is not the life she planned. And
Aunt May loves this shit. She's like one step down from Professor X. I mean, she has like the second biggest home for special kids in America.
Oh yeah. The second
I think she even said like, this has like given my life meaning again after Ben. Didn't she say something like that?
She has at some point. Yeah, it's sad, but the second Peter's stuff is out of that room, you know she's adopting more kids.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel bad that we're like laughing and having fun with this issue, but I think that's what Peter would have wanted, honestly.
And we've also known he's gonna die for a while.
They've been advertising it for months at this point.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You crazy boy," and he adds, "But cute." And then May looks up in horror, and we see Norman Osborn has woken up, and he's in his goblin form, flaming, standing over them, looking scary and tough as ever.
He is. They look pretty outmatched. It's kind of like, oh, this is the death of Spider-Man, you know. Oh, he's about to die.
Well,
it is sad.
They've set it up as, okay, we've beat everyone. Now Peter can bleed out slowly and have moments with all the people around him. And then all of a sudden they reintroduce the biggest threat.
Well, I've never for 1 second thought he's going to like bleed out. Unless he dies, superheroes are not going to die bleeding out slowly. That's not how their body works, you know. You have to like kill them on the spot. Is how that's why last episode when it's like spoiler, the Punisher kills Spider-Man, it's like no, he didn't at all. You know, Spider-Man will heal from this bullet wound. One of these villains is going to have to kill him if they want to kill him.
Sure. He's alive until the second he isn't.
I guess. Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about this issue?
I don't think so. It was really good.
Yeah.
This was a really good one. I think we're getting Bagley's best work we've ever seen in these final 2 issues. Just seeing people's faces and how much emotion they convey. And, you know, you mentioned the sweat droplets that just like add to the panic and like the intensity of the scene.
Yeah. And I think part of that is, again, I said it last issue, I'll say it again. He kind of has some synergy with Andy Lanning and Justin Ponsor. I wish that trio had done more issues together.
You notice that stuff a lot more than I do, but I think every time we see Bagley, it's like, oh yeah, this guy's the king.
He is good. It is so impossible to separate Ultimate Spider-Man as a series from Bagley's work on it because he's the artist to almost 2/3 of the issues.
Yeah. And that's why every time he's not the one drawing, we say, why does everyone look different? This isn't how they look.
Yeah. Glad we got him back for this. So I gave this issue a 9 out of 10 quips from a kid who doesn't know he died 10 minutes ago.
That's really good. I will give this one a 9.5 out of 10 quips.
Ooh.
You know, I don't know why I would even take away half a point. It seemed pretty good, you know.
I don't either, and I'll be honest, it's because I know the next one is better.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Spoilers.
In my mind. I don't know.
Okay.
You know what? I'm calling it. I'm gonna say this is a 10 out of 10. I'll
The
just
first one? Don't let me influence your pick just by saying we'll see. You might not have known. I might have been thinking the same thing. Or
well, first of all, this isn't the first 10 out of 10 we've given on the show. It'll be the first one in a while, but truly, I do think these last 2 issues are among the best in the entire run, and I'm going to score it as such.
Well, then I'll give it a 10 out of 10 also, because
before
you had already influenced me. That's what I was going to give it, and then you influenced me with a 9.
Oh, okay. You really had 10 in your mind?
I did have 10 in my mind. I was like, okay. This, you know, it's good.
It's unanimous.
I just love it when Aunt May pulls that piece out.
She's so gangster. I just wish she had done it sideways, right? Kill shot.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Death of Spider-Man, issue 160. This is it. Same creative team. We've got a couple variant covers, one by Joe Quesada, Michael Kaluta, and Mark Bagley. And where were those variant covers? Oh, it was on the final page of yours.
Yeah.
That
Joe
one of
Quesada?
Spider-Man and Uncle Ben is very famous, I think. And I think I've even like seen that picture before with like Splinter, the big rat, and the Ninja Turtles or something.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's like walking them as little turtles, and then in the next one, they're like helping him walk with his cane, and they're like tall. But it's that same exact like style. Or at least that's what it reminded me of.
Sure. Yeah, he's like welcoming him into heaven.
Oh, sad.
And then the main cover, which oddly enough, you can't see in the thumbnail on Marvel Unlimited, but when you click the issue, you see it. This main cover is also a famous one. This is, I would say, I see it used less frequently than the Doves one that Bagley did, but overall, it is one of the more famous covers from the Ultimate Spider-Man series.
Well, when I saw it, I thought this is kind of underwhelming for the final issue, the death of Spider-Man. He's just like generically shooting his webs. There's nothing here that is special about this comic book cover at all. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's just a cool drawing of Spider-Man.
Well, that's what we want in life.
I mean,
and I guess you don't want any spoilers.
It's good enough to get my money.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I don't really like the one of Uncle Ben and Spider-Man either. That's not like my favorite cover. It just like made me think of that. I didn't think that they hit a winner with any of these covers.
If this came out today, though, there would be 10 variant covers. I swear, they have gotten out of control with the variant covers nowadays.
Sorry, I know there's dead air that she'll just edit out. I am looking up that Michael Kaluta one. Oh, yeah. It's like a really weird one. I'm actually going to go back and find it. He's like riding a horse.
What?
He's like riding like a Pegasus horse that's like death, I think.
Yeah. And lo, I saw a pale horse with a rider, and its name was Death. Is that what they're going for?
Cool Bible reference.
Revelation.
Yeah, that must be what they're going for. And I don't like that one either. So, anyway. Okay. Death of Spider-Man, issue 160. So, the story opens. It's a whole page drawing of the Green Goblin. Like Zach said, he's looking as ferocious as ever. He does a big smash. His horn is torn off.
He is missing a horn.
Yeah. Oh, that must have hurt. If that's anything like bone. Poor Goblin. And he's chasing Aunt May.
It's all right, John. You don't have to feel bad for him.
Okay. I won't. Phew. He's chasing after Aunt May and Gwen and Peter as Peter is kind of grabbing them and swinging them away. And Aunt May's doing a fun grab on Peter's face where he can't really see. And I connect everything to pop culture. I think that... What are you?
Is it the Phantom of the Opera?
It's not, but in Spider-Man Home Away from Home, I can't think of what it's called, where Peter gets his identity. He's got to swing MJ off the bridge or something. Maybe. Yes, I think so. No, Far From Home is when they're in Europe, right? This is No Way Home.
Oh, okay.
See? Stupid titles. What's the next one called? Like Begin a New Home or something?
Spider-Man Homeless.
Spider-Man A New Home. A New Hope. Hope. MJ does do a grab on his face just like this. Where he's... And it looked so similar, I couldn't help but be reminded of it. Now I'm sure that happens a lot of times over the years with Spider-Man swinging pretty ladies around. They grab his face because they're scared. So I'm sure it's not any type of Easter egg, but it did make me think of it. And that's why the BVB pays us the big bucks.
If we had a nickel for every time.
Every time what? A pretty girl grabbed Peter's face?
We'd have 2 nickels.
Yep, that's true. So Peter's swinging them away, and he says Norman Osborn, or he thinks to himself, I could really do without this day. Norman Osborn, what's wrong with you? Never mind, don't care. And back at Mary Jane's house, she is frantically trying to call Peter, and she's leaving him messages to just call him back. She's obviously really worried. And she's like, please just let me know that you're safe. And just when she hangs up, she sees a big electricity blast and a smoke blast, which is probably Electro exploding and like exploding Sandman with him.
I believe so.
And she sees that coming from the direction of the Parker's house. She springs up. She goes and runs her mom. Mom, I got to go over to Peter's. And her mom doesn't let her. And she says she can see her. This is, oh man, I hate texts like this. It makes me sad. She says, you can see your boyfriend tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. Wow. Very foreshadowing. If this wasn't called The Death of Spider-Man, I'd be pretty confident Spider-Man's about to die.
Yeah.
And it is called The Death of Spider-Man, so I'm certain he's about to die.
Oh my God, my brain is melted right now because we're in 2025 and everything has to be a reference and everything has to, be an Easter egg. But I was like, what if her mom had said, it can wait one more day?
It's a brand new day. One more day.
It could wait one more day. People would have rioted.
Why?
Because Spider-Man One More Day is the story that everyone hates where Spider-Man and Mary Jane's marriage gets like magically annulled.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the one that the last movie was based on.
Not really. Maybe loosely.
Huh. So Peter continues to think to himself about how hurt he is, and he lands a couple houses down with Aunt May, and we get, more dialogue that I just really like out of these last two issues. He grabs Gwen kind of by her shoulders, and he says, Gwen, you listen to me. I don't care what Aunt May says. I don't care what Aunt May does. You get her as far away from here as you possibly can. I don't care if you have to hit her on the head with a hammer and carry her over your shoulder. You get her out of here. It's just realistic dialogue to me. Everyone's characters are doing what they would realistically do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting Gwen says nothing this whole time. She's not like, or, oh, Peter, don't. She's just silent during this entire scene.
Yeah. Well, I think she's following orders. Like, I think out of all of their friends and all of their, like, more than Mary Jane, definitely more than Aunt May, I think if Peter tells Gwen to do something, she'll do it without fighting him on it at all. Like, she's the one that can most see when he's serious and when he, like, means what he says, and there's no arguing with it, So I think that this was a good person for him to be saying this to. Like, it feels more right for him to give this, like, command to Gwen versus to Mary Jane. Also because of Gwen and Aunt May's relationship.
I was just about to say, the thing here that's helping, because everyone else would fight back. They'd be like, no, Peter, you need me. Gwen might like Aunt May more than she likes him.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, that's her mom at this point.
Well, if we were going to do a count that was like over under 2.5 times that I like teared up during this issue. What would you bet? What's your bet there, Zach? 2.5. That's kind of a lot. 3 times, Were there 3 scenes that would make me tear up in this issue?
I'm going to say, because you're asking, I'm going to take the over.
Well, I don't remember, but I know that this was one of them. So we'll have to go through, and as I get to other ones, that I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. That one got me a little just choked up. It's like, oh, cute. Peter's about to die, right? We know he's about to die. So,
and you haven't even on this same page. You haven't even looked at the panel that I think is way sadder.
Well, what's that?
The next,
Aunt May.
the next two. So Aunt May looks at her jacket, and this thing looks like someone exploded an entire ketchup bottle on it.
Yeah,
and
I didn't
she's
even
like,
notice that, actually.
She says, Peter, you're bleeding. It's like, of course, yeah, he's always bleeding whenever he's doing Spider-Man stuff. He's always got little, nicks and cuts, and maybe sometimes he stumbles in and he's dripping blood. But right here, he's like actually bleeding. This is like, dude, all your blood is coming out. You're dying. Amounts of blood.
And there's kind of a fun little background here when Aunt May says, Peter, you're bleeding. That is normally reserved for when Peter gets like a Spidey sense alert. And that's getting me right in the emotions also right now. Just like noticing that's right. Her like Spidey sense is going off at this point.
We got it a minute ago for Mary Jane as well. In her bedroom, she could tell something was like really wrong, and she got that little background behind her.
Oh, she did.
It's like they're just alert. They're like alarmed.
Yeah.
But it always makes me sad whenever there's like a movie or something where someone looks down at their own hands or clothes, and they realize that their loved one just bled all over them, and it's not good. It happens often, but it happens one time specifically in Evangelion that makes me not see this scene the same way anymore. It's just a little bit sadder to me.
That is. I love how much you love Evangelion.
I'm telling you, it's got to be our next podcast.
Well, there were also two Doctor Who episodes have come out. So Black Mirror, you'll also have to check out those Doctor Who episodes.
Okay. After this, I'll ask you if they're any good.
Okay.
Or you can just say really fast, yes or no.
No, I want to do this.
Okay.
I want to do this Ultimate Spider-Man podcast.
I'm too ADHD for this.
So Peter just kind of pushes Gwen and Aunt May out of the way as the Goblin continues to leap over houses to catch up to them. And he says, "You hear what I said? Get her out of here." And Gwen and Aunt May kind of take off as Peter and the Goblin prepare to fight. And Norman lunges towards him, and Peter gives him a big punch to the face that sends the Goblin crashing down the street. And Peter thinks to himself, okay, I am bleeding now. Because earlier he was like, I think I'm bleeding. And then Aunt May said he was bleeding.
He says,
it's almost bleeding. Like every time he uses force to really beat someone up, he kind of always takes a second and thinks to himself, okay, that hurt. Now I'm really bleeding. This is bad. He's hurting himself more. What were you going to say, Zach?
Oh, I was going to say, he says, I am bleeding bad now. So he's known he was bleeding the whole
you're
time.
Right. Yeah.
But this is where he's looking at himself and he's like, oh, yeah, that is a lot of blood.
That's kind of the connotation I was thinking he was saying. He's like, I knew I was bleeding, but I'm bleeding. I guess I was that was the emphasis. So Peter then thinks to himself, I can't do this. I can't do this alone. But this is where I like that he's thinking to himself in his head very seriously. But then outwardly he says, hey, Norman, could you do me a favor? Just stay right there and practice. You're crazy. I'll be right back. And he swings away over the house. And Peter goes and he runs over to Johnny Storm. And he says, Johnny, I need you. Wake up, pal. Johnny, Spider-Man to Human Torch. Johnny Storm, wake up. And Johnny manages to, kind of daze his eyes open and say, what's going on? And it's a great drawing here from Bagley of a panicked Spider-Man saying, I'm kind of in a really bad situation here. I really do need your help. And we can see the Green Goblin jumping over the house behind Spider-Man, about to pounce on him. And Johnny Storm can see that also from his vantage point. And he moves Peter's hands off his shoulder. And he says, I remember. Get out of the way. Oh, man. I don't remember that one probably didn't make me tear up, but boy, did I feel some strong emotions right there. You know, in any Fantastic Four comic book, this is the hero's moment. I mean, what a cool moment from Johnny Storm right there. You know, like, it bums me out that we know he's not going to save the day here, because it seems like he should.
It's like, you've done enough, Spider-Man. Now I've got this.
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to pass the baton.
And he's got it. And Johnny's such a cool character that it's like, if Bobby said this, you'd be like, Bobby, baby, stay down. But the fact that it's Johnny, you know, he's the Fantastic Four, and he's like so cool and handsome and dates all these pretty girls. And, you know, we've seen him fight villains, like that one guy that had him imprisoned in his locket on his chest.
Who could forget?
Who could forget that guy? That, man, I'll explain what happens, and then we'll come back to it. So Johnny flames on. He says, flame on, and he flies up at Goblin and says, he says, hey, crazy, I've been wanting to do this to you. Don't even know how long. And then he should say, it's clobbering time, bub.
That's his friend.
And he grabs Goblin. He says, come on, burn, you blank burn. And we see Goblin and Johnny Storm kind of burning in the air as there's a big explosion. And it looks like Johnny is blasted backwards. And it's kind of unclear what is happening to the Green Goblin, because he could be getting blasted or he could be doing the blasting here. It's sort of, you know, for a second, you don't really know what happens.
He's either getting his rocks on or off.
Perfectly said. And Johnny falls to the ground, and it's funny. Peter doesn't even try to talk to him. It's almost like he doesn't have the strength to talk to him.
How many times are we going to say it's funny in these Death of Spider-Man issues?
Well, that's how we cope with tragedy,
I guess. It probably, I mean, if it sounds like we're being crass or whatever about a young man dying.
I don't think anybody's going to get on us about like... Zach, we said the over-under at me crying at 2.5. So, you know, there's plenty, or we could say it's sad. Peter doesn't even try to talk to Johnny. He just is thinking to himself. He's so hurt, he can't even talk to him.
No, that wasn't as good.
See?
Being sad just doesn't make for good pod material.
Exactly. And he says, probably should have woken up Iceman and said, instead, Goblin's powers are fire-based, and Johnny is on the ground, and he says, I'm sorry, he's 2. And Peter thinks to himself that fire is probably the worst thing he could have thrown at him, because the Green Goblin is fire-powered, and he says he absorbed it. He just took it all in. I'm really upset at how easily Johnny Storm went down, and it brings me back to the Daredevil Wolverine movie. Sorry, Deadpool Wolverine movie. Where once again we get an awesome Human Torch buildup, only for him to be like very easily defeated by the same type of thing. And to your credit, Zach, you did say that could happen to the Human Torch, and I was like, I don't care. It shouldn't, you know. But here it is happening again.
Johnny Storm, he don't get no respect.
I guess so. We see Peter look up, and as he says, you know, the Green Goblin with the powers of the Human Torch, we see him look up, and now a white flamed Green Goblin is floating in the air above Spider-Man. And I think Spider-Man with his ripped up suit, it is supposed to look like his skeleton almost, because he looks pretty decrepit and on death's doorstep in this picture.
Well, he's dropping a gallon of blood, splattering.
There's a humongous blood droplet on the ground.
This was
bad.
As sad as this issue actually is, this was probably the time of his life for Mark Bagley to draw.
Probably.
I mean, this has just got to be the funnest action sequences he's ever drawn. And he's like, yeah, more blood. That's not enough.
Is it a little goofy that in like this big finale where like, and now the Green Goblin has the powers of the Human Torch, you know?
I don't think he has the powers
is that cool? Or no, I think he does because he's flying. We've never seen Norman Osborn fly before. And he's like a different color. He's like radiating way more heat. And the first thing he also does is throw like an enormous fireball, which maybe he could do to an extent before, but I'm not 100% confident.
He's been doing that since the beginning.
Has he been flying like this? Like, I do think he like has the powers of the Human Torch. And Johnny's been sucked dry. Norman got his rocks on, and Johnny got his rocks off.
He does appear to be hovering. I'll hand you that.
And he, like I said, he throws a big fireball at Peter as Peter kind of runs away down the street. And as we've seen him yell a million times before, he just yells, "Parker, Parker."
And he's got his own unique speech bubbles, like he always has.
Which is a good touch always. That's just how the Green Goblin talks. And his gills have never been gillier. And Peter picks up a big mailbox off the street and he smacks him across the head with it. It's nice that even with this Green Goblin with the powers of the Human Torch, Peter is still holding his own out here. Because I was a little worried he was just about to get killed. You know, it's the death of Spider-Man, so... But Peter's smacking him with those mailboxes that are on the street. And he says, "What's the plan, Osborn? I'm dying." Oh, foreshadowing. "I'm dying to know what's next. You kill me, then what? Your son you killed won't magically come back to life. Your world as a captain of industry won't magically go back to the way it was." And he's saying this as he's like beating up Norman and, you know, the fire hydrant's going crazy. Like Zach said earlier, which was a really great point. He's just using anything that he has to his benefit right now.
Sure, because he throws the flaming goblin into the fire hydrant that's still shooting off.
Yeah. And he says, "And your hair won't magically come," and he's kind of panting. He falls to his knees, "into fashion," which is really great because we know from original Spider-Man way back in the day, Norman Osborn's hair is one of the funniest things about that run. Osborn's hair in general. And Peter's down on his knees. Osborn's kind of picking himself up. And Norman says, firing, you know, he's back on fire. Zach made a good point to say that the water put him out for a second. And he says, "But you'll be dead." And he stands over Peter. And this is kind of the end, it seems. Peter's head is down. His eyes are shut. He says, "Well, yeah, there's that." And Norman is, you know, full on sadistic goblin. And then all of a sudden...
Hold on real quick.
Okay.
And those panels are framed in such a way that half of the face you're looking at is Peter's, and the exact other half is Norman's.
Yes. Incredible observation. Thanks for pointing that out. And then, out of nowhere, the goblin turns and looks, and a humongous truck crashes into him. And look, I'm not saying I wish that this happened. I'm extremely happy with we'll get to in a sec who's driving the truck. But I did think, for the splittest of seconds, what did I think, Zach? To read my brain. We've been doing this for 104 episodes.
The freaking cavalry's here.
That's funny. No, I didn't think that.
Was it Jessica?
No, it wasn't that either. I'm pretty sure that the Punisher is known to drive a big truck and like crash it into things.
Oh.
But I think that the Punisher's truck is yellow. So I saw the big truck and I was like, "Oh my God, is the Punisher going to come back and like help Spider-Man?" And I was like, "Oh, it's not a yellow truck. It's probably not him," because I do like to try to figure that out before I look at the next thing. And then the real cavalry has arrived. It's Mary freaking Jane driving the truck, and she just blasts it into the Green Goblin. and crashes him, down the street into a bunch of cars, at least putting him out for the count long enough so Peter and MJ can have a quick conversation.
I love this moment so much.
I love it so much. Yeah.
One of the best Mary Jane moments in the whole series. It's
Definitely
my favorite moment this whole issue. It's so good that she got something really cool to do in the last issue. And also,
you're right.
Keep in mind, she has a personal history with Osborn. I mean, he tried to throw her off of the bridge.
He did turn her into a goblin somehow, right? Those are two different stories, but she became a goblin girl.
Wasn't that was in the Clone Saga? That wasn't him. That was Doc Ock.
Oh, why'd she become a goblin? Just because?
I guess. But yeah,
maybe she injected her with Oz or something.
I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
But this man has tried to kill her so many times.
Yeah, you're right.
In so many ways, and she's like been shown to be terrified specifically of him. Whenever Peter's like, Norman Osborn's back, she's like, oh my God, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, you're right. That's awesome. I didn't even think about that.
We see her pedal to the floor. It destroys the truck she's in too. I mean, the airbag deploys and everything. She like put herself at risk doing this.
Yeah. I mean, it's like driving into the Hulk. He's a Hulk of a man.
It's like flooring it into a brick wall. She loses her front tire. It just completely flies off.
Okay, so it did make me think, how do we think she got out of her house? Because I like to think, Zach, that she told her mom what was going on. Everybody is, right? The neighborhood knows. Everybody, it's becoming common knowledge, right? This is a big enough deal that it's becoming common knowledge, like Peter Parker's Spider-Man. So I like to think she was like, she just came clean, and her mom was like, okay, go. Or flip side, right? She just ran out of the house.
Yeah, I think she's just a teenager. Her mom said no, and she did it anyways.
Okay, I like to make these stories in my head.
You can do that.
I'm filling in the blanks here.
Yeah, you have that freedom as someone who's reading the piece of media and it doesn't tell you explicitly.
But it could, because maybe in the next issue, right, we could see if Mary Jane's mom knows that Peter's Spider-Man. I thought of that too. I was like, if this keeps going, it'd be interesting to see how Mary Jane's family dynamic has changed at all. Anyway, different story. That's Ultimate Mary Jane Watson.
Wish we got it. I would read it.
Definitely. So like Zach said, Mary Jane crashes the truck. It's really messed up. The airbag deploys. We're really not sure if she's going to be okay. And then Peter manages to, I guess, like pull her out of the car.
A fist punches through the glass, and she's like, thinking it's the goblin, but I guess it's Peter's fist, and he's getting her out.
And she says, did I get him? And he says, you're insane. Did you steal this van? And she says, it was just there. And he says, you stole a van. You're welcome. And they smooch. And this is kind of nice. One thing that I notice about Peter here is he almost has got like a second wind when he sees Mary Jane, right? All of a sudden, for one panel, he's not grabbing his side and like thinking about how much he's going to die, or like slurring his words or slowing his speech. Like, he actually he's just not thinking of it right now.
Jeez, the power of love.
It's cute. Yeah. And they share a big smooch, and then Peter just chucks her like a mountain away and says, now get the hell out of here. And as she's flying in the background, he swings a big web up for her to land in safely. And that's pretty funny. Oh, sorry, it's pretty sad.
Such a good touch. I love that. I think I said this earlier, and I didn't mean for it to have this meaning, but I said yeah, you know, he's alive until the second he isn't. Bendis is not writing this like it's, at this point, necessarily meant to be a sad issue. It obviously is and will be, but Peter and the people around him, for one last time, are still acting the same way they always have. And I do appreciate that.
Well, except that for like the first time, this is like a big team effort, you know, like I think that they are showing that, like, gosh, I already said this earlier, but like Spider-Man isn't just Spider-Man. Spider-Man is all the friends we made along the way, right? They're all a part of Team Spider-Man here, and they're all going to help this time when Peter isn't enough, you know?
I think it's so funny that everyone had their role to play. Except for Bobby. He can stay passed out.
Except for Bobby.
We can't really use
That's
him.
funny.
Everyone else, Peter has either been...
Didn't Bobby freeze? Did Bobby freeze like Electro or something? Or no,
Yeah.
Electro just like shattered him or something? I don't even remember.
Yeah, Bobby did a little bit, but I'm saying in specifically this issue.
Yeah, you're right.
Everyone, there's the woman that raised him, and then 3 romantic interests of his.
Who's 3? Who's the 3rd? Who am I forgetting?
Johnny
Norman
Storm.
Osborn? Oh, Johnny Storm. That's so funny. That's actually hilarious. You got me good there.
The subtext is there, John. People don't want to see it. It's not my fault.
Listen, that was pretty cool what Johnny Storm did there. And then he immediately got thrashed.
Yeah,
but,
it might have backfired horribly, but
yeah,
he sure did flame on.
So Peter, you know, he throws Mary Jane into the net, and Goblin is not down for the count. He just never will be. And he says, "This is the day of reckoning, Parker. I'm delivering God's message. God wants this to happen." And I still do think he's referring to himself as God. I'm sure you do too, to an extent.
And you know what? He might be right. God might get his way here.
Dude, is he maybe he's referring to like Bendis? Is Bendis inserting himself as the Green Goblin now? He was the first person in the first issue, right? He refers to himself as like God and the creator and whatnot.
I think that's a little too meta, but I like where your head's at.
A little bit. And Peter has just totally had enough of this, as have I, and he picks up the truck that Mary Jane used to smash into Green Goblin, and he just gives it a big smash over the top and smashes Goblin onto the ground. Where have we seen this before? What's this reminding me of? A big truck smash?
It reminds me of the episode of SpongeBob we just watched the other day where Patrick picks up his rock and is like,
dude, that is what
spiders! Smashes SpongeBob 100 times.
That's not it, but that is similar. We'll go with that. And he does a big smash, and in between smashes, Norman says, "I will destroy your family like you destroyed mine. I will kill everyone you know." This is like really revisionist history here by Norman Osborn. Yeah. This would be a good time for Peter to channel his Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You have done that yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
God, I was thinking the same thing.
Really?
Yes.
Great references. We were on the same page there.
We're so good at this. It's a shame
we are.
The podcast has to end.
It doesn't. And this is also one of my I just really good dialogue from Bendis here, because Peter's smashing him with the truck and Norman is probably screaming this. What he's saying is the implication, because Peter gives him another smash and says, "Could you do it quietly?" This is very teacher of him.
And speaking of someone who once said they wanted to be a teacher and then never followed up on it again, Mary Jane is kind of climbing out of her web net, and she's climbing down, like, looks like a light pole or something, and she says, "There you go."
Yeah, she's like watching on, which is just a good little touch, right?
She's kind of smiling. Everything's going to be all right.
Yeah, she does noticeably have not a look of fear on her face. And Peter smashes him, you know, he gives the biggest smash we've seen, and he says, ow. And the truck explodes, and he is blasted backwards. And now Mary Jane does have a look of fear on her face as she sees Peter go flying. And Johnny Storm gets up and says, oh my God, Peter. And he runs over to him. Wow, he's the first one to get to him. Maybe a big smooch will save his life. Maybe true love's kiss is all Peter needs. And Johnny looks on and he says, I think you got him. Oh, actually, we kind of see Norman's hand start to rise from the fire before I think like crumbling back down into the flames. And Johnny says, yeah.
And it's noticeably human now.
I wasn't 100% sure. I thought that it was, but I was like, it still looks big to me.
It has a thumbnail, not claws.
Yeah. And Johnny says, I think you got him. And Peter says, good. That's about all I had. And Mary Jane comes running up and says, Peter, oh my God, Peter, we have to get you to a hospital. And Johnny's crying now, says, I can fly him. And MJ says, are you crazy? You can't move him. I just can't help but think that's not the right move. I think getting him to a hospital as quickly as possible is probably the right move.
I think at this point, it doesn't matter.
These guys don't know that the comic's called The Death of Spider-Man.
Right. But I was going to say, I think I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but I think my inclination in this moment would be Johnny, cauterize the bullet wound.
Yeah, perhaps Johnny has still had his powers sucked out of him. We don't actually know if Johnny even still has his powers, right? We haven't seen him use them since he said it got absorbed.
Sure. You think he's going to try and fly and he's just going to fall on his face?
Well, I don't know. We haven't seen it. And it said it got absorbed.
I took it to mean he absorbed like the flames and like the energy that Johnny had already produced. I don't think he sucked him dry and now he just has no powers.
Okay, good. I hate the thought of Johnny getting sucked dry. This is pretty sad. Peter's body looks pretty cold and lifeless. Johnny is crying over him. Mary Jane's running up to him. Some douchebag in the back has his phone out because it's the future and everyone has their phone on them and has to record everything. And Mary Jane says, has anyone called 911? Is anybody a doctor? And we see Gwen and Aunt May running back. And Gwen says, we can't be here, Aunt May. And Aunt May says, leave me alone. And Gwen says, he specifically told us not to. And then they approach the front of the crowd. And I'm going to say over 2.5. I think that probably at some point there was an over 2.5. Just, you feel it. It's sad.
And all the characters on the panel are crying at this point.
Yeah. And Mary Jane is kneeling over Peter and she screams, somebody do something. And Aunt May's crying and she says, oh no. And Gwen is on the phone with the police again, or the hospital. And she says, Queens Forest Hills, we have it. And she says, you already know, then get here, which is another good piece of just dialogue. This whole thing is just so well written by Bendis. Because where are these people? They've been called 100 times by now. But they're probably stuck on the bridge. There was a big disaster that happened earlier. So in universe, it makes sense for them to not quite be here yet.
Not to be that guy, John, but I think there's hospitals in Queens. They wouldn't be coming from New York, from Manhattan into Queens.
But see, I saw The Dark Knight Rises one time, and I know that when something was going on, Commissioner Gordon was like, I want every single cop in the city doing this particular thing. So maybe every ambulance and policeman in the city has been sent over to the big bridge that exploded. It could have happened.
I suppose.
Okay. And Mary Jane is now like full on crying. She says he's really hurt as Gwen and Aunt May walk up. And Aunt May says, what did you do, boy? What did you do? Oh, yeah, this is definitely... I'm such a softie. And Peter...
Take up both of us, man.
And Peter says, it's okay, I did it. And Aunt May says, just hold on, the ambulance is... And Peter says, don't you see, it's okay, I did it. I couldn't save him. Uncle Ben, I couldn't save him, no matter what I did. But I saved you. I did it. I did. And then his, we see his arm kind of fall to the ground, which is just the universal sign for someone dying. And his eyes shut, and Aunt May cries. And it's really sad. And, I'm definitely teared up when I was reading it and getting a little choked up reading it now. So what you think, Zach?
It's not done yet. You've got a few pages left, but...
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, it is kind of done, right? But Johnny runs over. He puts his head on Peter's heart to feel a heartbeat, and kind of shakes his head when he comes up. And they all scream no. And Aunt May says, "Oh my God, not him too! Please, not him too!" And Mary Jane cradles the body, and MJ or Gwen and Aunt May are crying, and it's really sad stuff.
And then there's one more page after that.
I know. I want to know what you think of the death of Spider-Man.
All right. I just wasn't sure. I think it's so sad that in Peter's mind, in his beautiful little 16-year-old, underdeveloped, responsibility-filled mind, he thinks it was his job to keep Aunt May alive. Where, superhero or not, we know that she, as like his guardian, would see it the complete other way, right? She would rather something had happened to her than to him. And he's sitting here in his last moments, and he's like, it's all okay because I couldn't save Uncle Ben, but I saved you. I mean, that's just it's selfless, but it's also like, you want to shake him and say, no, man, like you were supposed to live.
Yeah. Yep, it's pretty sad, and it also does provide some good insight into Peter that even after all this time, he still blames himself for Uncle Ben's death, which is he's just a good little superhero,
Yeah.
Good on him.
This you never want to kill Spider-Man. But if it has to happen...
No, you never want to kill Spider-Man.
Rule of thumb, listeners, we like Spider-Man alive. But if you have to tell a story called The Death of Spider-Man, I can't think of any other way than how you did this, right? I mean, it is so earned, and it has so much weight behind it. And like every character gets a good last moment with him. And... I mean, the action is good. He does it against worthy foes. It's sad that it had to happen, but on the other hand, I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Neither would I. Let's get to the last page and see if we still agree with that. Okay. On the next page, I'm going to call this the next page because I did not know that this was the last page reading this issue. I wasn't paying attention to the page numbers. The crowd is huddled around Peter's body. We kind of see them as black silhouettes in the background, and the foreground is the fire that Norman Osborn is in. And we get 3 panels just of Norman's face in the flames, getting closer to it each panel. And in the last one, maybe there is a hint of a smirk that is formed, but I truly can't tell. And before I get your opinion on this, I'm going to say that I hate this page. I think because the way it's read and what we know about comics, the implication here, I think, is that Norman Osborn is still alive because that fucker just never dies. And boy, how much of the last story did we just read? Does that ruin by having him still alive? He just had this very emotional moment saying, I did it. I saved you. well, we know if Norman Osborn is alive, he's coming after him, and now Peter's not around to help. And then I'll say, so I don't like that. Okay. If he is dead, I still don't like that the story ends here because I wanted so much more out of this. I needed like 5 or 6 more pages to show me the next day without Spider-Man and to like show me the funeral. I just like, there's not enough here. There's no wrap up, right? We went from like climax to ending, but there was no falling action, So I don't know. I kind of, boy, man, for 24 pages, this was like a really solid 10 out of 10. And then I'm really thrown off by this last page.
So I'm glad you brought all of that up. You said a lot of stuff that I want to make sure I remember to respond to. First of all, about the falling action, because you're absolutely right. This is not an ending in the traditional way that we think of endings, right? This is the ending of the climax, really. We should have the falling action and the resolution. We're going to get that in 2 weeks when we read Ultimate Fallout 1 and 2.
That's what I was wondering.
There will be a funeral.
I was wondering if this completed, because when this issue ends and you look at the next page where sometimes it says like the next comic books in the series, the next one it just goes into is like Ultimate Spider-Man Miles Morales. And I was like, no way would they do that. What an insult to the memory of Peter Parker to not give him more, you know?
There's an entire mini series that we're going to read called Ultimate Fallout. That is exactly what it sounds like. It's the entire Marvel Universe reckoning with the death of Spider-Man.
Okay, I am excited to read that. Okay, so what about the Norman Osborn stuff?
Interesting stuff, man. I already brought up, he was in the first panel in the first issue. He was in the first panel in the Death of Spider-Man arc. He was in the first panel of the last issue we read. And now he's in the last panel of the entire series. If someone only had the first page of this series and the last page of this series, they would think the whole thing was from Norman Osborn's perspective. There's something to that. You can't tell me that wasn't a conscious choice.
I mean, I think it's a really stupid choice. I think it like underhands so much of the emotion that has happened in the previous 2 pages. And I think, like I said, I think it just raises questions that I really don't like it if he's still alive. Because why did our hero just die if he was still going to be alive? If he's not stopped? What are we going to put him back in S.H.I.E.L.D. custody?
So I will say one thing about it's the Mona Lisa. It's the Goblin Lisa. Is he smiling or is he not? Look at his chin. You can tell from the orientation of his chin. I don't think his mouth actually moves at all. I think our camera angle moves, but it does move in such a way that it makes you think, did he just smile?
And it makes you think, maybe what it is doing is it's orientating it in a way that makes his human face appear goblin-like, because it also makes his eyes are shut in all 3 panels, but it gives his eyes life. It gives his like mouth slight movement. It just gives his face more of a lifelike feel, even though you're right. And I know because I did compare them. It is the same picture in all of them, but it definitely makes it. I mean, I think anybody reading this that is familiar with comic books would read this and go, oh, Norman Osborn's not dead, right? They showed him at the end, Yeah. He's back.
Or here's another potential meaning. Did he die with a smile on his face, knowing that Spider-Man was about to die also?
Oh, that could be, yeah. That could definitely be it too.
Because we know he had no goal for the rest of his life other than just to kill Spider-Man. He said as much.
Well, and we've finished the run, so I don't think it'd be that big of a spoiler. Is Norman Osborn dead here? Does he come back? Surely from reading the future.
I won't say. I can't say. Look at this story in a vacuum. I beg you. Assume that what you see on page is what you get. How does it affect how you
That's
feel?
the thing. I can't tell what I'm seeing. I can't tell what I'm looking at. Am I looking at an alive man or a dead man? That affects how I feel.
Okay. I know this is the dumbest art critique anyone can have, but I mean, you're talking about it. Surely that's what they wanted to elicit, right?
Yes. That's why I think he's alive, which I don't like.
Okay.
It's a bummer. Aunt May should shoot him a couple times. That's the only thing they haven't tried yet, I think.
Carol Danvers tried it.
Shoot him as a man, though.
I think
right
that's
now
that's exactly what they did.
Oh,
on the Shield helicarrier.
So, what's our ranking system? Let's say
out of 160 Ultimate issues.
I love that. Well, should we do that for the whole run? No, we'll just do that for this. For this in general. The run gets a 10 out of 10. Out of 160 Ultimate issues, gosh, man, I told you, and I was being serious. For 24 pages, I was so into that, and then I just really have a problem with this last page. I just really don't like that. I mean, I don't care about the thematicness of Norman Osborn being God and the creator of this series. I don't like that the last page of it wasn't something to do with Spider-Man, and instead it was this.
John, have you considered?
I don't like that the last thing, Spider-Man died thinking to himself, I did it. I saved you guys. And then one page later, or is Norman alive? Oh, who knows? It rubs me the wrong way.
John, have you considered that we were told in issue 23 what this was all about all along? It's circles, dude. Circles of life.
That's true.
Circles of death. Circles of Norman Osborn being the focal point.
It's funny, he said that enough times, he broke the fourth wall and it became the truth. He is the main character in this universe.
He spoke it into existence. He might be God.
I'm gonna say, what's 160? That's such a hard number to put in groups of 10 to know what percent I'm giving this. I'm gonna give it a 145 out of 160. Which is I know, man, that's a 7.25 out of 8 is what that would come down to if we. So, it's not.
How do you just do this in your head?
Because you can simplify 140 and 160 into 7 out of 8. And then, so 145, right? That's roughly 7. It's not 7.5. That's not enough. So it's more like 7.25, which I think is the exact number now that I'm actually thinking about it.
You're Rain Man.
So I wish I gave it higher. I've said it already, right? It's a perfect issue, but the ending does rub me the wrong way, so it's going to lose a point for that.
Jeez. So it's the best 24-page comic you've ever read. It's just the 25th page that's the issue.
It's that undercuts Peter's death a lot. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I get your reasoning. I understand where you're coming from. I'm going to give it a 160.
Okay.
I have
Why?
to.
Now you have to explain yourself.
It is something that I always dread reading, but then I read it and I'm always amazed by how good I forgot that it was. I'm genuinely looking in this issue and I'm saying, is there anywhere in the dialogue or the pacing or the art that I could knock it? And there's just not. It's just some of the best fight scenes that we've had in the entire series. And like I said, all the characters I love get a good last moment with Peter. And you never want to see your hero die like a chump, right? And he absolutely does not. I mean, he earns every single punch and he pays for it in blood. And at the end of the day, this is like the only way you could tell this story. And one little detail that I haven't mentioned yet that I kind of like is this doesn't even happen in Manhattan where he can like climb up the walls and swing. He's not really even using his Spider-Man powers to his advantage that much. He's just using his wits and his will.
Yeah. And like all of his surroundings, which we've kind of mentioned. Like, yeah. He doesn't have his normal repertoire of things he can do.
Sure. He's kind of been backed into a corner. And it's up to just him and the little help he gets from the people he loves.
Yeah, it's really good. I like everyone having their own part. I mean, it's really good. I'll raise my score to 150 out of 160. But I just have to take off for the end, because if I watched a movie, if Tony Stark snapped Thanos away and died, and then after Tony Stark's funeral, we saw Thanos come back and be like, next time I'll get him, that would affect me a lot.
Yeah, I don't see this quite like that. I see it akin to the top at the end of Inception. Is it spinning or is it wobbling? But I get what you're saying.
Well, what else do we have on this issue?
Nothing. I just would say overall, this is the capstone of what we started. What was the quote that you sent me?
The Tony Stark one earlier. It's the end of the path I started us on. Good little Age of Ultron quote.
Yeah.
And yes, it is. And Zach, it's been pretty awesome. This has been a fun run. We got a lot of really good stories in there with a lot of really good heroes. And, we talked last week about how many just like classic scenes and panels there are that are just like hilarious and they're ultimate, man.
I think we got another iconic panel in this one of Mary Jane cradling him on the lawn. I always think of that one when I think of the series.
Yeah. Yeah, Mary Jane driving the bus is probably one of my favorites. This whole, you talked about it with how good the fight scenes are and everything, but this is it's all very cinematic. Doesn't really feel like you're reading a comic book, It truly is a page turner.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. It is amazing to me how high quality this is compared to some of the other recent arcs that we had been getting, right? Like, you wonder if all of the writing had been this good and all of the art had been this good for, like, the past 2 years, would this be getting canceled?
Well, maybe it makes me think Bendis probably had this type of story in the chamber. Like, he knew when he brought back these characters, this was going to happen. So all of the Mysterio stuff and any nonsense that came before it that I truly don't really remember, I don't remember the major arcs, but I know since we started counting over at number 1, it's been like Mysterio stuff until we got it. It kind of feels like just like treading water. You're just like going through the motions, not really like doing interesting things. But that's maybe not true, because the J. Jonah Jameson stuff where he was like that was an interesting storyline.
Yeah. Ultimate Doomsday was great.
But that's not like in Ultimate Spider-Man. That's kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah. I do think you probably are right to a certain extent that Spider-Man was supposed to die in Ultimatum, and it wouldn't have been his decision. And he probably at that time thought, okay, this is something they're maybe serious about doing in the future, and how would I want it done?
Yeah.
So
That's
he might have had
Yeah.
a little bit of time from Ultimatum to think about this.
Yeah.
Anyways, what a way to stick the landing. Hats off,
Definitely.
Bendis and Bagley.
Yep. Great job. And everyone else,
Yeah.
except for Ralph Macchio.
All right, so in 2 weeks, because we are now bi-weekly, we're reading Ultimate Fallout 1 and 2. Do you have anything
Okay.
else about the Ultimate Spider-Man series or forever hold your peace?
I don't think that I do, but I will not hold my peace. I'll talk about it if I think about it.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of our hallmark, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so
And hopefully all of our listeners that hopped on because of their love of the Ultimate Spider-Man run will stick with us as we cover new things.
I'll give a little tease that's not really a surprise to anyone. There's going to be another Ultimate Spider-Man, and we'll see what his deal is.
Well, actually, I guess that's true. We're still in the Ultimate Universe for a while, aren't we? Because you said there's another run covering the funeral, and then I'm not going to let us do anything else until we get caught up on the Maker. We're going to have to do the Maker before we can keep running through comics.
You heard it. Anything that's Ultimate Spider-Man or the Maker, we're there.
Okay. I don't know. Is that sarcasm? Is there so much of that? It's just insane.
No, man, that was the plan all along.
Okay, nice. Well, then, nope, I don't have anything else right now.
All
what
right.
about you?
Nope.
Okay, great. I've actually got a lot of other things, not about Spider-Man.
Okay.
So, first things first. Weren't we talking about sports?
Usually.
The draft is happening, right? This is the #1 sports podcast on the draft. And I asked you who you thought the Colts were going to take, and you said, I'll tell you on the pod.
Oh,
Are we going to snag Tyler Warren? Did we already snag him?
Dude, that's my hope. I am checking right now what picks have been made. I bet not that many, because there's always they always have opening ceremonies or whatever. They say it starts at 8 and then the first pick doesn't come for 30
Oh my God,
minutes.
dude. The NFL draft is, I sort of alluded to this before when I said, and then you realized how boring the combine and the draft is. And you were like, no, I actually love it. Well, that's because I think the draft is completely unwatchable. And I have been to the combine and I fell asleep during it. I thought it was so boring. But the draft is, as I said, completely unwatchable. It takes way too long. These guys,
oh my God.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see who we picked. But these guys have had months and months to think about what players they are going to pick. It does not take that long to take your pick. Who'd we get, Zach? Cam Ward.
No.
Shedeur Sanders.
Dude, the Cam Ward did go 1 to the Titans, but
Ooh.
the Jaguars traded up to #2 to get Travis Hunter. Oh my God, I hope they don't play him at cornerback.
He said if he's not playing both ways, he's not doing it.
He's bluffing. He has no leverage.
That's what he said, Zach.
Oh my God. This could either be really good for me or really bad because I have Trevor Lawrence, and so if he plays wide receiver, I can get the stack. But I was
he's
really hoping
100% at the very least playing wide receiver.
I was really hoping he would go to either Cleveland or New England, where they needed a wide receiver and would probably play him close to 100% of the time, and he'd be the main guy. And here he's going to be competing with, Brian Thomas
What's
Jr.
his name? Yeah.
Shoot, man.
Okay, so what about the Colts? Well, who took Shedeur Sanders?
We're only on pick 3. It's New York.
The Jets? The
Giants.
Oh, they're going to take Shedeur Sanders.
I could have been clearer about that. Dude, I saw someone saying Shedeur might go 21 to the Steelers. He might fall out of the first round.
Dude, I feel so vindicated because all year long watching college football,
it's Abdul Carter.
All
pick
I
is in.
heard, oh, he's really good. He's like a monster. Who took him? The Giants. That's a good pick. Probably the best player available.
That's what they keep saying.
He should do all season long. I was like, dude, if this guy was as good as everyone said he is, Colorado would be a better football team. He just can't be that good. He can't be. And all season long, I was like, Cam Ward just like looks like an NFL. When I watch him play, I'm like, that dude is built for like the NFL, just with how easily it looks like he does everything, which could be bad if he gets lazy, right? It is the NFL. You still have to put in a ton of work, but he just looks like the prototypical like QB. And it sucks for Sanders, and it sucks for Deion Sanders, who I'm sure wants his kid to go like in the top. But I've been like thinking, how could he be a top 5 pick if Colorado wasn't good?
Yeah.
And they had the Heisman Trophy winner. They've got the best QB and the best cornerback and the best wide receiver, and they can't win football games. That's like not, it's just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And they're never going to win either. They're like IU at this point. If they had all of that talent.
If they couldn't win last year, yeah.
And when are they ever going to stand up to that competition? Who are they ever going to have that's good enough?
Yeah. I'm guessing Deion will not be there for long. He seems like the type of guy that's going to head for a better job the second he can.
Well, sure. He had said that he wanted to make Jacksonville State one of the best teams in college football, and then he like immediately dipped.
Which you can't fault for him.
No.
But I'm not sure. I don't know. Dude, I'm just like I'm just being an idiot with a podcast right now. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Hey, it's no different than what they do on ESPN, right?
That's a good point.
We're just as qualified as those guys. What else you got, John?
I have some interesting things about Daredevil from our good friend Lawrence Love's family, who wrote into us.
Okay. Are we in our listener mailbag section?
We don't have to be quite yet. If you have other things, this is just kind of.
I didn't.
This kind of leads into Daredevil, and I didn't know if you might have anything like that's come up that you thought about in the last week that you were like, man, I wish I talked about that with Daredevil. I think about that stuff all the time, but I can't remember any of it now. So Lawrence Love's family. One, he sent us he's always doing cool drawings and like artwork. I'm sure you remember that because I always like forward them to you, but I didn't know if you remembered the name of the person that did it. And he sent us in a pretty nice little comic book drawing he made, and it's got a big Iron Man in a green suit with a Doctor Doom hood over it, and I just eat that shit up, Zach.
Oh yeah.
But it's pretty cool. It's very talented. Lawrence Love's family, extremely talented. I'm so impressed by people who can play the music or draw well. Those are just two talents I have zero of.
I used to be really artistic as a kid, to the point where people were like, "Hey, you're
no, Zach, we said artistic."
Both.
Yeah.
I was both as a kid. Still am. But I was really artistic as a kid, and to the point where people were like, "Hey, that's like really good for your age," And my parents got me in drawing classes and stuff, and I hated like whatever I drew because I wasn't comparing it to like the other kids my age. I was comparing it to like professional artists, and I was like, this sucks. I'm never going to get better. And I got so discouraged. I totally quit. I've atrophied. I've like lost that skill. And now I'm like,
stinks.
Man, if I had kept with that, is there a potential future where I'm like a comics artist now?
Well, maybe not that, but I did just put together a couple things for you here. Your love of architecture, along with your ability to draw buildings or design things, could lead to a pretty nice architecture career had you not given up before you got started.
That's true. I could be pretty good at drafting.
But you could still get into that, Zach. How old are you?
29. I've looked into it.
I began my teaching career at a later age than you are right now.
Yeah.
So it is not, if being a full-time podcast host and content creator doesn't work out for you, there's still time to be an architect.
Okay. Yeah. Listeners, write in. What should I do with my life?
Listeners, I'm having a crisis of confidence here.
Top comment wins. I'll do whatever.
Boy, oh my gosh, I want to talk about the new Black Mirror episode so badly with you saying that. Zach, I told you there's an episode that's like, what if your wife ran on a subscription service? And part of that episode is, I'm just going to spoil part of it, but they can't pay the bills, right? So it's just like Netflix. The cost keeps going up. And there's a website on there where they're like, listen here, guys, you can log on and drink your piss for some money. Just $20, drink your own piss. Whatever the listener says to do, you can do it for some money. And that's like the go-to on that website is like, drink your piss. It's like the drink your piss website. And I do think it's so funny that this guy couldn't pay his bills, right? We never see him try the insurance company or a GoFundMe or talk to friends or family, right? It's like his wife's life. You'd think it'd be pretty easy to get some money, but he's just immediately like, I'll drink my own piss on the internet for $20 a pop. That'll be the best way to do this.
I thought
it's
that was
a good one.
I thought that was going to go a different direction, and they'd be like, just 10 easy, high interest payments on Klarna, and you can have a payment plan for your wife.
What's Klarna?
It's this like,
oh, this is where you get to explain subculture to me or something.
No, it's just like a predatory loan. People use it for like the weirdest things, like concert tickets, right? Hey, you want to go see Taylor Swift, but it costs $2,000 and you work minimum wage. That's fine. Well, you can do it in 20 payments for us, but then with interest, it's going to be like 30 payments.
So they're just like predatory high interest loans where you end up paying a ton more than.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Man, if there are any listeners that don't understand credit cards, never get behind on your credit card payments and start paying like 24.99%. You'll just never get out of debt doing that. Never. Anywho, what were we talking about?
That's right. I don't know. Oh, Black Mirror. Did you have anything else?
Yes, I didn't even get to the Lawrence Loves Family thing I was going to talk about. The picture he drew was a side plot. Remember, the main thing I wanted to talk about was Daredevil. So I said the other week, Zach, it's so stupid that Daredevil can feel a painting of a person and know who the painting is of. I said, that's so dumb.
Yep.
But our resident artist, our artist of the pod, commented in Lawrence Loves Family, and he said, hey guys, I just wanted to say that Daredevil could do that thing with the painting, because when I draw something and take a picture of it with my camera and it focuses on the face, and then I do a Google search, it will look that person's face that I drew. So him touching the painting and feeling the curves and the textures and the contours of her face, yes, he definitely would, especially if he's got the abilities he has. And I would say that being a non-artistic person at all, I'm 100% willing to defer to Lawrence on this and eat my crow and say that, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It doesn't sound right, but I don't know enough about the contours of a face on a 2D image to disagree.
That's true. So there you go.
What if the artist just sucked, though? What if it was supposed to be her and Daredevil's like, Katie Couric? Is Katie Couric in danger?
That'd be pretty funny. Gosh, I know I watched Daredevil again and I had some stuff to say. I think I know I gave it like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. It just wasn't that good on second watch. It's got so many good parts of it, but it still is just... I think season 2 will be excellent.
Yeah.
But this still feels a little piecemealed together, you know, with like plenty of great moments, but plenty of stuff throughout the season and even the last episode where it's like, this just doesn't fit together as perfectly as it should be, you know?
Yeah. That's where I'm at. It's a good show. You know, not everything can be great.
Yes. So, do you have anything else?
I do not.
I don't think I do either. This was another giant-sized episode for the listeners.
Patriots just took Will Campbell. Pick is in for Cleveland. I'm so mad at Cleveland that they traded that pick. They better have gotten a haul because I wanted to see Travis Hunter go there and just be the wide receiver 1 for 10 years for them.
I have a hard time believing a wide receiver at number 2 is justifiable.
I mean, isn't that what Calvin Johnson went? If you think Travis Hunter could be Calvin Johnson, I mean, think about it.
Dude, it's so funny you said Calvin Johnson. This is one of the things I wanted to mention to you that I forgot about. I just can't believe it. Sometimes God is good, and you just have, there's no other explanation for it. Okay, finish what you were going to say, and then I'm going to tell you what you just reminded me of.
Well, I was just going to say, if you had to redo a draft, knowing what we know about guys in the NFL right now, if you had the number 2 overall pick in 2020 and you were redoing it, you can't tell me you wouldn't take Justin Jefferson. Or 2021, you wouldn't take Jamar Chase.
Well, Zach, Calvin Johnson did famously go 0-16, and he was famously the best receiver ever who never won a playoff game and retired because he was so sick of losing. So I guess that's the point I'm making when I'm number 2 receiver just doesn't. When Sam Darnold goes down, Justin Jefferson looks incredibly pedestrian. If Joe Burrow's out, Jamar Chase is not getting 100 yards a game. They are too dependent on the things around them.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate. Sure, everyone wants a good quarterback because that's the position that affects the game the most. And I'm guessing your anti-wide receiver argument is really a pro quarterback or edge rusher argument, right? But what do you do when there's
definitely I was thinking edge rusher there.
Or what? Offensive tackle?
So, I mean, I hate drafting linemen that early also. I guess you're right. The only, and now that I'm thinking about it, cornerback, a lockdown corner would be one of the positions that I would probably put up in being appropriate to take inside the top 5. So maybe they are drafting Travis Hunter for his two-way skills, because that does make that pick a little more appropriate. Because I think that, you have to pass the ball well and you have to shut down the pass. And those are the only 2 really important things in the NFL anymore. Running back's kind of coming back. So maybe you could trick yourself into taking Ashton Genty with a really high pick, depending on what you think of him. But I don't know. Just being a talking head.
Yeah. My point is, sure, if there's a quarterback that you think could be elite and there's a wide receiver that you think could be elite, you take the quarterback.
Yeah.
But what happens if there's not a good quarterback? Of course.
You have to take someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why when Cleveland saw they could trade down, they probably snatched it up,
Mason Graham, defensive tackle, Michigan. Another Michigan man goes to the Browns. Pick is in for the Raiders, but they're not telling us yet.
So, Calvin Johnson. Yesterday, I got a text from my buddy who works at an unnamed hospital in Tennessee that I won't share. It's Vanderbilt. I always say I won't share something. I'm like, why? So he works at Vanderbilt. Zach, you can bleep it if you want. And randomly, he sends me a picture of his attendees that are there with him. And he goes, "It's hard to believe that this guy in the middle is Calvin Johnson's brother." And I was like, dude, what? What did you just say? And apparently, Calvin Johnson's brother is an insanely successful, some type of, I could look it up, but I won't, some type of very impressive, surgeon that is just a really hard and demanding type of surgeon job that my buddy said, after X, it's the most intense surgeon job you can have is this type. And that's Calvin Johnson's brother. So, and my buddy works with him. It was pretty crazy.
Tremendous
stuff.
Love it.
I told him every Monday, and my other buddy was in the text, every Monday he should start what's called Megatron Monday. And he should just wear some sort of Calvin Johnson or Transformers Megatron, socks or wristband or bandana. Sure. And just see how long it takes for the guy to say something.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Now, do we have anything else?
I don't think so. Do we want to? I mean, we're
Listener,
pretty long.
we got to do well, but we got to do. Do we want to do any listener stuff? I did my Lawrence Loves Family thing. Did you want to read the other stuff or?
Sure, I'll read these ones that I sent you.
Just because they were very nice.
They were so nice. Perfect Cell, one of the ones who writes in all the time, says the both of you have been doing some real amazing stuff. 2.5 years of podcasting has actually made you guys experts. Never has any of your jokes missed, and all of the topics you discuss, aside from the Ultimate Spider-Man, is always just as interesting. I'm really
reading this out loud. When you sent me this, when Zach sent me this, and I read it in my head, I responded, "Wow, that's very nice," but that would be the funniest message in the world if it was dripping with sarcasm. And reading this out loud, there is no way this is not sarcasm. Saying the phrase, read that again, Zach. Read that middle part again.
This is our buddy. Never has any of your
No,
jokes...
start earlier than that.
The both of you have been doing some real amazing stuff. 2.5 years of podcasting has actually made you guys experts. Never has any of your jokes missed, and all of the topics you discuss, aside from Ultimate Spider-Man, is always just as interesting.
Incredible stuff. That's humor that I can never be that funny. Whoever wrote into that.
Perfect Cell. DBZ perfection.
Yeah.
I'm really happy I stumbled upon it when I did well over a year ago. Keep up the amazing work. Also, I really hope you guys continue with Miles Morales, since technically he becomes the Ultimate Spider-Man. And also, I'm sure John will want to see more of the Maker stuff, plus Secret Wars.
So does Miles Morales go into the Maker? I figured they were kind of on different levels. Like, the Maker's like a big, humongous villain, and Miles Morales, I figured when he picked up Spider-Man, he was going to be like very street level.
Yeah, but we'll read both. We'll read all of that stuff.
Okay.
Everything you just named, you're getting.
Okay.
All right. And then, so thank you. And then...
Yeah, that's very nice. We appreciate it. Even if it was sarcasm, I still appreciate it. Almost more.
And then Braden wrote in to say, just wanted to say, I am so sad the ending is coming up on one of your next episodes. It's this episode.
Not. And it's not.
It's
we'll
not.
be here in 2 weeks.
Yeah. The Ultimate Spider-Man portion of the podcast has absolutely been one of those things that brings me joy. Even
that's
if I
start... that's kind of back-to-back comments that might have been throwing shade at our other portions of the podcast.
You guys don't like two friends hang out for an hour?
I guess not.
Thank you, Zach and John, for the continued entertainment, and I hope it continues long after the coverage of this run is over.
Absolutely.
It will.
And we appreciate the comments always.
Yes. Thank you, guys. And here's another one. This was funny. This was a Spotify comment, which are notoriously hard for us.
One of our mean ones.
This is not a mean one. This is our first nice-ish Spotify comment.
Incredible.
It says, Zach explaining crabcore to John was unironically my favorite part of the episode. I need a whole segment where Zach just slowly explains different parts of alt culture to John. Great episode, guys.
Luckily for him or her, that feels like it does happen a lot.
And I can make sure it happens more. I've always got more to say.
Well, it sounds like, reading the 3 comments that we just read, it does sound like we need more bits, not about the comic that we're reading, not less. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, guys? We can deliver on that.
Yes, easily.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's it. 160 issues in the books.
Wow.
It is kind of a sad day.
But every ending is some other beginnings.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And the real episodes were
the friends we made along the way.
Exactly. Thank you. So, with that in mind, thank you.
Ashton Genty went to the Raiders.
Okay, there you go. Wow, I just talked about him.
Pick is in for the Jets. If this
Oh my gosh, can I do the outro?
If this isn't Tyler Warren, I think we might have a chance.
Are we next?
No, we're 14th. But
webheads, you'll have to check. You'll have to check and see yourself. We are not going to announce up to pick 14.
What if we did? What if we live potted the whole first round?
What an exciting 3 hours of something I just called unwatchable. That would be.
You said you didn't have anywhere to be tonight, right?
I have a million things to do today. My schedule opened up enough to read a couple comic books and talk about them for 3 hours. Not then do the draft for another 3 hours.
All right, do your outro.
Okay, thank you to Ian Hickey for the music and Alyssa Seaman for the artwork. And thank you for listening and leaving us a review or a comment. You can find us the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, which might get a new name and it might not. We'll see. We haven't talked about it, but that's going to start making less and less sense as we go on. But at the moment, you can find us the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else you find podcasts. And you can leave us a comment on Instagram at First Read Podcast. Send us an email at firstreadspidey@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast. Swing on by next week, webheads.